It's been 1,200 days exactly since the last Chair Shot reality video was released. And, well, it's time again. Justin LaBar, Josh Isenberg. Let's see if we remember how to do this. Isenberg, it's been a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We look a little bit older, LaBar. You've thinned out even more now. I'm not really sure what you've been doing, what regiment you've been on, but you got that Jericho body now, don't you? That lean, mean physique.
Fueled by a little bit of Grey Goose every now and again, I suppose.
Yeah, obviously, naturally.
Better with age, naturally. Thank you to everybody already. We're seeing the viewers pick up. We got a great chat room. It's been sitting here waiting. Hoping all of you guys enjoy. This is supposed to be kind of a celebration of a show that had many different phases, Josh. And it's kind of like we kind of grew up with the show. We grew up with people that were supportive of the show and became friends of ours. And so this whole episode is meant to be tribute to the past, take a look at some fun archive clips, but also myself, Josh, and being joined by some of the other members in just a little bit. Take a look at a wrestling landscape, Josh, that has changed quite a bit since December 2018 when we last were on a CSR stage.
It's amazing. I mean, I think about all of the changes that have come in WWE, have come in, obviously Impact Wrestling, AEW, but man, did we start? I mean, everybody has a podcast now, right? Like everybody has a podcast. Everybody's on video. I feel like we tapped out maybe a little too early, LaBar. Well, I don't know. Maybe 10 years is a long time.
The landscape changed. When we started, it was a time of where there wasn't a whole lot of video. In fact, if you had a video, it was a few of the elite guys who were in actual studios, like our friends Art and Jimmy up in Toronto, or Damian and David in Milwaukee. Otherwise, you were on your phone recording audio, doing an audio podcast. So we kind of took the middle ground at first, doing a makeshift set, and then we've eventually did get to our alma mater's Point Park, which was an awesome experience. Yeah, so we're just so happy. So this is kind of a fun way to a fun way to celebrate everything. It's awesome. We're getting so many comments already as we're flashing them up as best as we can. Oh my God, it's Josh. The CSR band is back together. Alexis, you look.
Wait a second.
Looks stunning.
That's not Alexis, by the way, but yeah.
Facing Fight, CSR. WrestleBuzz, we want Gulish.
Well, I mean, know. Were we able to get him out? Is he going to appear today? That's a great question. Well, who's going to appear?
Still dealing with his agent of how much time we get a screen time. So we'll have to wait.
That's true.
We'll have to wait and see.
He's by the minute. He's a little bit more expensive than we are.
He is. Well, real quick, before we jump into the actual wrestling talk, I thought it'd be fun just because was trying to going down memory lane of all the different iterations. I found some photos, and I haven't even shared this with Josh or any of the crews. This is like a first time look of the different sets. So we'll see what rings memories here.
Wow, look at that.
That is I think that's the very first episode. I think that's the very first.
That is like, what am I what kind of pose is that? Well, I'm not really sure what I'm doing.
This wasn't a still. I think this was taken from the video. So
okay.
This was in a Monroeville. This was in a Monroeville loft, I believe, is where this was filmed.
And I believe that's a wooden chair that we're on, right? Like wooden kitchen chairs. Wow.
And there's steel chairs behind it, and I believe that fancy ass light is a light you stole from a church. I think.
I did. Yes, I had an internship at a church, and I have not been let back into said church. So.
So there's a first. What else we got? Then we moved.
Yeah.
This is the next set. This is you fighting me with a Rey Mysterio mask. Yeah. This was the next upgrade. Little monitor in the middle there. So trying to find our step. 2012 Miami.
Yeah. Jimmy Cordero is our buddy.
Yeah. So this was us putting ourselves with the guys who were doing it already. With from left to right, Damian, David, myself, Josh, Arda, Jimmy. Everybody's going on to do wonderful things. And then the next one that was fun. Yeah, that was fun. The next one might be my favorite. This might want to be my favorite set pre Point Park.
Yeah, I mean, this was awesome because we had that graphic in the background. The lights really popped. As you can tell, the many phases of Josh, the hair, the weight. I thought I was stylish at that point, but I really was not. I tried too hard to be bright and boastful, but that was one of my favorite ones as well. I thought that one was just like, it looked as professional as we probably could have at that point with the limited funding and features that we had.
And if you want to see what kind of funding and features, here is the behind the scenes of behind the camera of this. That is that.
And that is like us putting those lights up. I mean, I think we set up for like 2 hours a day and filmed for like 30 minutes. So, I mean, and this was the basement whenever, your basement,
My
right?
place, yeah.
Yeah, that was your
farmhouse.
place. Yeah, it took me about an hour to get there on 51. If anybody's familiar from Pittsburgh, Route 51 is a bear to go through. But no, that was wow. All those cords.
I can't
Surprised
believe
that barn house did not burn down. By the
I was
way,
about
with
to
all
say
those
the same
cords
thing.
out.
I was going to say the same thing because that basement had water in it like nonstop.
Yeah,
So it was that to turn it into that.
amazing.
And then finally, this is the very first day we did our first rehearsal at Point Park.
Yeah,
Just kind of somebody grabbed this from a monitor in the control room, and it would have the 4 chairs, and then eventually we would evolve to what you see in some of the other clips today.
yeah.
With the ring post and everything. So quite the journey.
Wow. I mean,
Quite
that
the
was
journey.
what 10 years in the making. We had probably 6 or 7 different sets, but I mean, I always thought, that set that you had downstairs was great. We had that video graphic. We were able to put on, the matches that we were talking about if it was a pay-per-view weekend or a topic and things
Yeah.
like that. That one, I think, got us to the point of becoming somewhat credible. Not that we weren't before, but we were trying to figure it out along the way. But the look and the presentation from that time forward, I thought, was whenever we really broke into, being taken very seriously and something that people needed to see. The other stuff was nice and we tried, but that one really popped and I think got us to Point Park.
Absolutely. Matt P saying we want Juice. Give it time. You can't bring out everybody at one time. You can't do that. Yeah, it's oh yeah, look, shout out to what the Delaney's with their Matthew Shapiro saying glad I got to hear Worms again to open the show. That was one of our themes, of course, from Pittsburgh band, the Delaney.
Yeah.
So that was again throwback to once upon a time. Abdullah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Let's get in some wrestling talk. Enough nostalgia. Let's get in to the first topic right now, Josh, and that is my boy, Stone Cold Steve Austin. After all these years, after how many times in the hundreds of episodes of Chair Shot Reality did we fantasy book and debate Stone Cold coming back? And no, it's got to be more than just a sheriff or a special ref or an enforcer or a special host. This is the closest, but we are squabbling over language. He's going to be on the KO show, but he's talking to Rich Eisen about how he's training, and they're using 19 years, referencing the last time he had an actual match against The Rock. So what are we expecting, Josh? What is Stone Cold Steve Austin and KO going to do?
I mean, I think it's going to be similar to what The Rock did at WrestleMania 32. It's going to be a longer match, hopefully, than what he had with Eric Rowan. But, coming out, talking for a little bit, I think, Owens is going to try to run him down as much as possible. And I want to see a 5 to 7 minute match. You don't need a 10 to 12 minute match. You have a lot of other matches on the WrestleMania card that are there for the pure wrestling. This doesn't need to be that. So if you have Kevin Owens, come out, I mean, this past Monday on Raw, Justin, was just perfect, right? And I remember talking to you before I even saw it, and you said this was fantastic. The second Stone Cold music hitting on Monday Night Raw, his reaction, it was perfect. And Kevin Owens is the perfect guy to carry a feud into WrestleMania because of how talented he is on the mic and how credible he is and has been in the WWE for his entire career there. I want to see maybe a 6 to 8 minute match. Have Austin, say, hey, you want to go? It's been 19 years. I'll come out of retirement. Boom. You start the match. Have Austin get beat down a little bit. Have him do a few of his moves. But I do think that Stone Cold has enough of 6 to 8 minutes left in the tank to make something interesting happen and make it an actual match at WrestleMania. I just wish they were billing it as a match, because I do think if you said it was a match, more of the casual fans will actually come back to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin if you're promoting him being in a match. We've seen Austin do the special guest hosts or the special interviews at WrestleMania time and time again.
I agree with you. If it is marqueed as the first match back in 19 years, you probably can. You, me, all of us, we probably can turn and call up a lot of people who are casual, lapsed fans and say, Austin's actually coming back and they're showing training vignettes and look at him. And that could probably entice people to either attend live or, to watch on Peacock and try to get back invested in the product. But I think that's probably like the one thing that Austin has held out on and said, I will do more physicality. I will contribute more physicality than I have in 19 years, but I wanted to go down as my last match is versus The Rock. So that's where I debate you here. I think it could actually go. I think what we get might go longer than what you're suggesting, but I don't know if we're going to get a formal ding, 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 ring the bell. I almost think it's going to be KO with the KO set to kind of honor the KO show theme, but I think it might be as simple as, him again, just running down Texas. The place is barely going to let him speak. They are going to be at a fever pitch chanting for Austin. And I think the glass hits, and I think Austin has that BMF walk. And I don't even think he needs to come in there and say much. I think it's going to almost be KO just realizes, okay, after all the talking I've been doing, and push the set aside, throw the microphone, and it's just a brawl, and it just remains a brawl until somebody leaves the other one lane.
But you got to do so what's Austin going to come out with? Like the jean shorts and leather vest? Like what's the visual that you want to see Austin come down? He doesn't need the black trunks.
No.
But I do think you need to see from what we've heard, he's in great physical shape. So if he comes down looking like he's going to kick ass and not come down with his jeans and his Austin 316 t-shirt, then it's on. But if he comes down not looking to fight, what is the point of him being there then?
No, I agree. I think wrestling boots on with jeans or shorts. We've seen him wear both, or his black kick-ass street boots. But yeah, vest and no shirt. I think that immediately sends a signal.
That, wouldn't you?
Oh, I would. I would. Sends a signal right there, and I think it just turns into a brawl. But I think when I say brawl, I think it will be, again, it's not going to be just kick stunner. I think it's going to be the arc of a match. Austin's going to be up. KO is going to do something low blow, or somebody else comes out. There'll be heat spots. There'll be brawl around into stuff, and then there'll be the comeback. I think it's going to have the stylings of a match. It's just going to be it's never going to be listed as such to appease. Next question I got for you: does this end night one?
I was just going to ask you that question. Because just going to ask you that question.
I mean, do you want to? We'll go and for everybody wondering what's coming up later in the show, we will go through the entire WrestleMania card with Gulish and Juice. So, do you want to ask Charlotte to follow this? Do you move Styles and Edge to follow? Does Cody Rhodes have him? Like, do you ask anything to follow this?
Man, if they really do more than just a quick stunner and a quick Luthez press and kicks, if they actually want to put significant time into the physical aspect of the segment, then this ends WrestleMania. The only thing that I think would persuade me otherwise is if they did this 4th or 5th on the card. I think, night one of WrestleMania, you're going to have a banger of a match because they've realized that's what you really have to do now, right? You have to put a big marquee match. I mean, last year, look at WrestleMania with Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, an important match. Wasn't the greatest match of all time, but an important match that people were interested in, back with fans. They did it at WrestleMania 35 with Rollins, 34 with Rollins in the triple threat. So you go all the way back to these opening matches that are sometimes more important now, not more important, but more memorable, in terms of the physical and quality in-ring work. So if you want to, I think you start off WrestleMania Saturday night. If you have Edge and AJ, you potentially put them to start the night because that's going to be a hell of a 25, 30-minute match. But then you let it breathe, tag match, one of the women's matches, maybe the Stone Cold segment in the middle. But I would say if they do more than the few kicks, few punches, and Stone Cold Stunner, this has to end it. You have him celebrating, cheersing, drinking beer, boom, end of night one. Very nostalgic, similar to what they did with The Undertaker in the Boneyard match.
Well, I'm going to agree. I think this has to go last on the first night. You don't ask anything to follow this. This is how you end the crowd high for night one. And you mentioned The Undertaker. Look, The Undertaker's going in the Hall of Fame in a very untraditional Hall of Fame. It's going to be after SmackDown Friday night, which I don't agree with, but that's a whole other conversation we can have later. But it's tradition that you always have the Hall of Fame class make an appearance somewhere at WrestleMania. I think how fitting. We're in Texas. Let Austin and Owens have their big brouhaha, and whether Owens has Seth Rollins or just somebody else or just a cheating mechanism, whatever Owens does to try to get a gain a heel advantage. What a way to end night one. If you had Steve Austin and Taker standing side by side cheersing in Dallas, Texas.
And I think that's a fantastic idea, especially with this year's WrestleMania. Right now, we have just Taker, Vader, who obviously won't be there. His family will be there. Queen Sharmell, bookers from Houston. So you can have them do a backstage segment and acknowledge it. I don't know if you need to bring them all out, like they usually do, just because it's not a big class. And I know you've been a huge proponent of having The Undertaker be the only one that was in the Hall of Fame ceremony, which I agreed with. But again, they didn't do that, and it is what it is. But yeah, if you want to have that big memorable moment at the end of WrestleMania, Stone Cold. But again, it goes back to this. Okay, Stone Cold is, quote, in a match. Stone Cold gets the upper hand, which is inevitably going to happen. But if it was an actual match, Stone Cold has to win, right? Or does Kevin Owens somehow pull something out of his sleeve and then Austin beats him down after and celebrates with the crowd? Is there a difference there? Like, Kevin Owens is benefiting here, but if it's a match, does it benefit Kevin Owens at all if he loses?
I mean, I think he's benefited no matter what. I think he's getting a rub no matter what, being involved in what's the biggest thing Austin's been involved in with WrestleMania since. Sure. So I think there's, so we'll see. It's certainly, I mean, it's got my vote for what I'm looking forward to the most out of just the pure nostalgia. curiosity. Real quick before we move on. Boston Johnny, Gulish and Juice sounds like a sweet nightclub. It kind of does. Gulish and Juice. Sweet
Gulish and Juice, yeah.
I like that.
I wonder if they sell pasta salad. We'll see.
What do you say we pull into one of the old favorites to get into a little bit of reality checks there, Joshua?
Let's do it. I'm ready to go. I am fired up right now. We're not doing that segment, but I'm fired up for reality checks.
All right, Josh. Reality check. In the next 12 months, AEW Dynamite will top Raw in total viewership, at least for one episode.
I'm going to say this is a reality because they are really only 0.3 or 4 at times away. And I think that they will because a lot of the holidays on Mondays, Monday Night Raw typically garners a low rating. 1.5, sometimes a 1.49. In AEW, if they load up on some shows, I mean, they're continuing to sign as many guys as possible, which I'll talk about later on the show. I do think that they can pull that off where they get like a 1.4 or 1.5 and they beat Raw slightly. Again, they're consistent right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do to increase the general interest, the casual interest, not the hardcore fans that they've gotten themselves accustomed to over the past 3 years. And kudos to them, though. They're consistent. They're getting the numbers that they're looking for. And obviously, they already added a second show with Rampage. They're doing everything right now.
All right.
You ready for yours, huh?
Yeah, give it to me.
All right, let's do CM Punk. Reality check or not, Justin, he will hold gold in 2022 as we saw him do this on Dynamite.
Yeah, I think this is a reality. And just by that simple gesture, you know, he wouldn't do that unless he didn't already have an idea of where his story was headed. Certainly, you can make an argument. You know, CM Punk has come to AEW and he wants to shine. He wants to put a light on some of these younger talent, but overall, he's still beating them. Right? He's got one loss in his entire. It's like 12-1, 13-1. So while he still wants to give them their offense in a match, while he still wants to give them the TV time for weeks leading up to in a feud, he still is winning because he's still CM Punk. He's still on the comeback tour. I think, yeah, it's inevitable. It's a reality check. He's going to win the world title. It can be somewhat of argued of a crowded world title picture, even just title picture in general, because AEW tries to make an effort to have the TNT title not be second tier, but be just kind of off here on its own ledge. So I think, yeah, especially with their annual visits to Chicago every September, whether it's Punk and Kenny Omega, whether it's Punk and Adam Cole, whether it's Punk and Hangman Page, whatever it might be, I think reality of inevitably that CM Punk will hold the AEW world title. All right, Josh, reality check for you. Gable Steveson, big stud coming out of the NCAA. He will be in a SummerSlam 2022 match this summer.
I'm going to say that this is a reality check, and I think this could potentially be his first match in WWE. You see them do this with their prized, talents. I mean, Omos, a guy last year that was highly viewed as being their next big giant, getting his first opportunity on the grand stage. And then you had Big E many, many years ago that people forget at WrestleMania in a tag team match, his first match on the main roster. Gable Stevenson's a guy that multiple-time national champion. He is a guy that is ready to go. I mean, he's already teased and talked about how he's going to basically debut right after WrestleMania. He kind of spoiled it. I don't know who's more excited about. I don't know what debut I'm more excited about, him or Veer, because Veer is still walking from India right now. So maybe that's your SummerSlam match.
He's coming from India.
This is
Veer is coming.
What? Never mind. I'm not going to ask what type of. Anyway, so but I do think that this is a reality. I think Gable Stevenson's a guy that you can build a program around in 2 or 3 months. And I'm going to go take a shot on this. The one guy that I would love to see his first feud with, Bobby Lashley. If Bobby Lashley is ready to go, I think MVP on the mic with Lashley, running down Gable Steveson because they have a very similar background in collegiate wrestling. That is one hell of a match that I'd love to see. 2 big bulls going at it.
Hell of a pick. I like that.
I like you. All right, LaBar, reality check or not, AEW will hold a stadium show this calendar year.
Man, we're a clean sweep of realities. I'm going to say yes.
Really?
Yeah.
They only have it, but here's my trick when I thought about this. They only have a few pay-per-views a year.
They do, but they also, while they have the traditional pay-per-view in that sense of buy it or stream it, they like to do these special shows, even if it means a mega Dynamite. And I feel like, obviously them and everybody else in the entertainment and sports world lost so much time because of the pandemic that there's so many things I think that have been held, AEW was going to go to the UK, and obviously that got postponed because of COVID. So I think there are things like a stadium show that are going to get announced. Again, maybe it's a Mega Dynamite, maybe it's a new pay-per-view, maybe it's a new one-off, a la Clash of the Champions, whatever. But I think Tony Khan, much like working with CM Punk, because it's been documented, they knew that they were going to wait until they had fans, until they did business. I think a stadium show, with the popularity continuing to rise, you're going to capitalize on that. Whether it's a stadium show in the U.S., whether it's in Canada, whether they do make it overseas, I don't know. But I do think before the calendar year's out, that's absolutely possible.
Hot take.
Ain't going to happen.
Pick a stadium. Or how about a city? Pick a city.
I'm going to give a cop out here, but when you have a stadium of your own in Jacksonville,
TIA, yeah.
You know, so
in the most loyal, most fan base is probably in Jacksonville right there. I mean, I think Daly's Place was a godsend to them. You know, talking about the visuals that place has been, and I love how they continue to go back every few months now. But seeing that, I mean, I know that's not a stadium, but seeing the visual of Daly's Place really changed how I wanted to view pro wrestling and how I wanted to view different arenas. You don't get that often with WWE because they're just always in basketball or hockey arenas. You know, the creativity that WWE and AEW more so have done in terms of visualizing a product and visualizing what you're seeing every month or every 3 or 4 months for pay-per-views or big events like that. Grand Slam, another example. Allegiant Stadium, how they've had that and how they had the Rumble, very different feels. It's going to be interesting to see what stadium they do select, because I do think that they could easily sell out a 40 to 50,000 seat stadium.
Absolutely. Super chat, appreciate it. $5 from Jose, our Mexican ambassador. This reunion is awesome. Where is the Wrestling Inc. party in Dallas? I don't think we're having a formal party in Dallas, unfortunately, this year, Jose. But Jose, that's going back. Whew. That's going back from the beginning.
Mexican ambassador. That was 2009, 2010, huh?
10, I think Atlanta probably.
27.
Steve Bolch. There's the lads. The band is back together. Absolutely. So a lot of great stuff. All right. Let's take a break. When I say a break, really, it just means a trip down memory lane. It gives us a chance to catch our breath, take a quick sip. We'll take a trip down memory lane, and when we come back, we will be joined by the third co-host. He is Mr. Brian Gulish, as we will get in to the very controversial topic of Cody Rhodes. I have a feeling, it's gonna get ridiculous. I feel like so. We'll see what happens. Take a break. We'll be right back. Enjoy this trip down memory lane.
I am hanging here at Chair Shot Reality.
Back to Chair Shot Reality, WrestleZone.com, being filmed here in Pittsburgh at Point Park University.
The three guys that host the show obviously are very knowledgeable. That's one thing I can pick up immediately from that first segment. I always enjoy actually just talking shop when it comes to wrestling, because it's always interesting to see people that are at different levels that actually have a good understanding and good comprehension of the business. And now we are headed out to Latitude 40. And there I will be doing a special signing, and then also a very rare Q&A, question and answer, because I don't do those too often. So it'll be a lot of fun, and it's a very cool place.
Version 1, the one and only Matt Hardy!
I've had the hugest crush on him since I was 5, and I've just always wanted to meet him, and this was my opportunity, and I did.
He seems like such a sweetheart. He's such a nice guy.
I really like Matt. Matt's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He always puts on a good show.
As far as being in the WWE and both of us being there together, I would say when his 2 years were up, I can't say 100% where I'll be at that time, but if something has worked out where I was doing something part-time, I could see Jeff being with WWE part-time if that was possible.
All right, what do we got here? We'll do one more each.
Okay. Perfect.
One more each. All right. I got the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, on the American presidential elections.
No.
On the first Tuesday of November, Daddy, it's gonna get redneck funky.
Somebody going to the pay window, electoral college. You got my man, Donald Trump, my woman, Hillary Clinton. And they're going to find out exactly who can go on the Broadway, who can go to the big lights of Washington, D.C., Daddy. That's right. And they are going to go in the office, and they're going to do everything they got to do to make an American dream come possible. All right, one more, Adam. You can finish it off for us.
All right, please get Stone Cold. Please get Stone
You can do it as Stone Cold.
Can I?
You can do it as Stone Cold.
But I need to actually find the thing, right?
Such a stickler for the rules.
Can I? That's totally
you can pull Stone Cold.
Can I do Stone Cold?
Stone
Did you
Cold.
pick?
And you can talk. Stone Cold's going to cut a promo on high-priced phone bills.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm figuring to open up a can of whoop ass on each and every person who gets in my way. You know what I really can't stand is those high phone bills. I want to take those high phone bills, put them in a turnbuckle, stomp a mud hole in them and walk it dry and make sure they lower that bill. And if you don't like that, that's too bad, because I'll give you the Stone Cold Stunner. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Trip down memory lane. Speaking of memories, Brian Gulish joining the show. Brian, it's been a while since these three suits have been next to each other. Good to see you.
You guys, I mean, things change, right? Justin, your hair's gone. Mine's gray. But the one thing that hasn't changed is Josh. His ass is still itchy.
Always itchy, always itchy. Come on now. Let's not start this, Gulish. It's been way too damn long and way too much therapy for me to come at you. I'm telling you right now.
9 years ago was that Matt Hardy thing here in Pittsburgh. That's crazy. And can Adam Cole do that rant on gas prices now?
Yeah, right.
Unbelievable.
Well, when you're saying unbelievable, you know, we always rank year after year. We talk about that was 2013 of Matt Hardy. In studio with us, one of the first of many times. Obviously, Matt's been probably one of the biggest supporters. I think we'd all agree of all of us in the show. But we talk about unbelievable. You look at each year. What was the top story? What was the most shocking story? You know, we're at the end of March at this point in 2022. And by the way it started, who the hell knows how it's going to end? But I have to think we would all agree that no matter what you feel, work, shoot, like it, don't like it, whatever, that up to this point, the most shocking, unbelievable story is the fact that Cody Rhodes is not currently with AEW. Brian, I know you've been itching. Your ass is itchy. I'll give you the floor. Cody Rhodes, for all intents and purposes right now, is a free agent until it happens on TV or in a formal press release comes out from anybody of what happens. Nothing's official in pro wrestling. We all know that the hard way. So I ask you right now, what is going on with Cody Rhodes, according to Gulish?
Up until yesterday morning at 8 a.m. when I was in my car driving to work and I had on Jericho's podcast, Trademark Everything, I said there is no way Cody is with WWE. It just doesn't make sense. There's so much going on with AEW. I still think, kind of, it's a work. You've got the ROH situation now, Tony Khan buying Ring of Honor. We all know Cody has roots there as well. And then Jericho said on the intro to his show, Cody's with AEW, Cody was back in the WWE. And I said, let me rewind that. Did he actually say Cody's back in WWE? And he did. And unless he's working us all, I'm kind of let down because I don't want to see Cody back in WWE. And the reason why is because I feel like it's going to just fall on deaf ears. He's going to get the one night hot pop. And then knowing the big machine that is World Wrestling Entertainment, he's going to be where Jinder Mahal is at now. He's going to be where a lot of these other talent are that are bigger names, prominent names. And for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reason why. Just look, where are all those names going? Miro, Matt Hardy, Daniel Bryan, all those guys. And not saying Daniel Bryan's a smaller name, but they're in AEW for a reason because they feel like they're utilized better. I just still, for whatever reason, think there is some part of this that's a work, and I'm going to believe that until I see him debut, whether it's at Raw this Monday in Pittsburgh, or whether it's at Mania, or whether it's the night after Mania Raw.
Go ahead, LaBar.
Well, I mean, I'll let you go. The one response I'll give to Gulish before I give my dissertation is you say work, and I've heard other fans say work, but the number one thing about a work is a work needs to have a payoff. The only suitable payoff based upon what we know of how, like, if this was a work and the way that they did or did not let information come out, and, you know, we got first reported, I think, by Fightful, then he officially handed over, the community outreach. And like, so if it's a work, the only payoff really is, what is he gonna have a match with Tony Khan, who up to this point has done a pretty good job keeping himself not becoming part of a character, making a few announcements here and there. But that's the whole thing about, if it's a work, what's the point? Where is the advantage? All you do is make perception of things are shaky ground and EVP has left. That's all you've done for the last 2 months. Josh, I'll let you go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian. No, Brian has something to say. Go ahead.
What was Cody's faction called in AEW?
The Nightmare Family.
Okay, the Nightmare Family. Who's the one WWE star who's no longer on contract, who's yet to make their debut in AEW?
Bray Wyatt.
And what was Wyatt's? The Wyatt family.
William,
family. Okay, Cody goes away. Bray comes over. We got a new family to start, boys. Listen, you guys might listen. You laughed at me 10 years ago when I said Shane McMahon was coming back. You laughed at me when I said the Stinger was coming to WWE. You keep.
To be fair, you said the Sting was coming to WWE for about 5 years before he actually showed up. So that's kind of like saying it's a full moon. It's a full moon. It's a full moon. Oh, there's a full moon.
No. I tend to agree with LaBar about the work situation. I tend to agree with Gulish, and I don't want to be the middleman, even though literally I'm the middleman right now. I just find it hard to believe that Cody. I always viewed Cody as the outsider in AEW, even though he was kind of the pioneer, right? He was the guy that crushed had the sledgehammer and crushed, the throne. Kind of an FU to WWE and Triple H. But I always viewed AEW as Ring of Honor, even though Cody did good things in Ring of Honor, but he wasn't there for that long. They're more of the indie guys coming together with a big paycheck and a big wallet. And I always also thought that Cody might have felt undervalued at times because he was not the number one WWE guy in AEW, and never was going to be. It was Jericho and then Moxley. And then obviously when they bring Punk and Danielson in, now you're bringing those big names from WWE that established themselves. So I can see in the back of Cody's mind thinking they're kind of doing what WWE did to me and pushing me a little off to the side whenever you brought these big names in. Now, do I really think that Cody has beef with any of these people? I have no idea. But I always viewed him as still kind of an outsider with the EVPs because he didn't come from their background. And as much as Cody had some amazing matches in AEW, I think the one area that I will disagree with you, Brian, is if Cody does go back to WWE, and if it's for the money that we've heard and all the rumors and reports of them throwing money at Cody and giving him potentially some more creative control on what he does and what he's going to do, again, we don't know if that's ever going to happen with anybody, but he'd be the first real big AEW guy to come back to WWE. And I think when contracts are beginning to expire in AEW people are going to look at WWE at times and say, if they treated Cody well, maybe I either go back there or give myself an opportunity to succeed in WWE, give myself a bigger stage, because you don't need to burn bridges to go from AEW to WWE. You can sign a 2-3 year deal, and I think all of us understand and agree that AEW is not going anywhere. So you can always, again, go back to where you came from, and that's the mentality that I think that Cody had. He wanted to show WWE that he could be even more popular without the machine, and he's done that. And now he should reap the benefits of whatever he wants in his career. I think he wants in his career those big main stage WrestleMania moments, because that's where he traditionally and originally came from.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Josh. From the beginning, I never thought that he was going to be AEW for life. I always thought there was a chance he comes back in the WWE circle in some capacity, even if it's just for a Hall of Fame. I did not expect it to be in 2022, and I did not expect it to be as abruptly and I don't want to say ugly, because no parties have said anything nasty in public. It's all been speculation of what could have been happening that would have just caused this to happen so quick. It's going to make a fascinating documentary one day. That being said, I do think he's going to end up back, and I think he is probably inked to paper already in WWE, whether it's seeing this Monday in Pittsburgh, whether it's held to Dallas.
What I try to see him in Pittsburgh, because what's the one thing that you and Kevin Nash always say, Justin?
You to make money off something, you got to advertise it. So
why would you hold him off to debut him at WrestleMania without any type of pomp and circumstance? Because if he doesn't debut in Pittsburgh on Raw, he better debut the Raw after Mania to get that pop. Because you put him into a 2-night WrestleMania card that already has Austin in it, Roman, Brock, night 2. He's going to get lost in that.
Well, first off, you're right. I'm always a proponent of, surprises are cool, but at some point you need to let people know they're coming, know what's coming. I will say this though, is that for a Mania that's already got Stone Cold and his shtick, and and Reigns and Lesnar, they're just interviewing Rollins and he's being silent, and they have these buildings chanting Cody. So that there's a certain hardcore element of fan who's following all this stuff, following what's going on, and then maybe more casual fans are hearing, why are they chanting Cody? They go online, and they start to catch themselves up. So I think this is at a point to where if Seth Rollins did hold Raw hostage this Monday, and Sonya Deville, Adam Pearce, even Vince himself came out and said, look, get out of here, go rest up, go to the gym, get ready for WrestleMania. We found you an elite opponent, or we found you, just whatever. And we know now they don't normally
there's your elite opponent.
They don't normally do that for Mania. They don't know. Cena called out the Taker. He was calling out Taker. When the Hardys came back at Mania, it was a triple threat. It wasn't a four-way. So they don't normally have a shadow box silhouette of who's the mystery opponent. But in this case, you're basically doing the CM Punk thing. It now becomes the worst kept secret because you're laying the foundation. All that said, I think it would be great to see him Monday because, again, if you're trying to make the biggest amount of ticket sales over 2 nights in the biggest venue ever, I think you need to have as many names advertised as possible.
I agree. I think advertising is big. Coming out at WrestleMania, I get that the big stage, he'll get a big pop, but Brian's right. Like WrestleMania already has these nostalgic names. They have their celebrity matches. They have their World Championship matches that have a lot of buzz around them. And honestly, WrestleMania Saturday, if for instance, if Edge and AJ doesn't hit that card on Saturday, it doesn't look like a great card on Saturday. The 2 women's matches are fine, but then you have, a McIntyre match that nobody cares about. You have a tag team championship match that nobody cares about. So out of those matches, you need to have some interest in how I would book this is I would have Seth Rollins come out on Monday Night Raw for the first 10, 15 minutes, whether he's handcuffing himself to the rope or he has, a chair in hand. So if anybody tries to come out and try to attack him and stop him and telling him to get the hell out of here, he's just swinging frantically like he did on Raw last week. And then maybe you have Sonya Deville come out, or Pierce, or Vince, whoever you want, and say, we have an opponent for you at WrestleMania. He's going to be here tonight. And that's when you try to draw those interests, because last week Raw had more viewers in the second and third hour than the first. So do that again. And then Seth Rollins comes out at the very end of the show. No interaction. You just have him come face to face with Cody. I think that's the perfect way. People are interested. You have 5 days to book how this match is going to go and how this match is going to be placed on the card.
And I'm a sucker for the good old limousine. Let a limo sit outside of PPG Paints Arena all night until the end of the show.
I love that. Yeah.
All for the limo.
And maybe they say we found your match and it's your worst nightmare. There's got to be something. I listen.
Yeah.
Part of me is just like holding out hope that I'm right and he stays in AEW.
You don't say.
Shocker.
If we were talking about a CM Punk, right, then there's a little more buzz there for me personally. And this is nothing against Cody, but just Cody going back, I feel he's going to get lost in the mix. He's not going to be in the world title mix. He's going to be in the mid-card mix. And we all know the mid-card championships mean nothing anymore. So he has a feud with Rollins, and where does he go from there? He's not going for Roman, right? He's not going for Brock, and whoever doesn't win the match, if they don't unify the titles, he's not going for that other title. So I just feel like if he wants his payday, good for him. But for me, it just doesn't make sense for him to go back to WWE except for the money, because we know Tony's going to pay him. Tony might not pay him $5 million a year.
Well,
Tony will pay him.
And that's a great question as we wrap the.
And we're live, and I got to adjust my camera because I don't feel like being that much smaller than Josh.
Well, and that's a kind of the final question to this point before we bring in Juice and we go to WrestleMania predictions is he's leaving a situation where, even if he's not the top guy after you brought in Punk and Danielson and all these guys, even if you're not the top guy, and AEW has a lot of talent with not enough programming right now, he's still an EVP. So it's like I can only imagine what money and benefits and all the package that he's given up. So if you're going to go to WWE, I got to think he's looking for more than just a downside guarantee and some good merch deal and some whatever, and a bus to travel, which he already had. There's got to be something else. And whether he gets involved in NXT, the newer version of NXT, whether he's involved in that and taking a new role that his father once had down there in Orlando, or whether he's been able to work some kind of, I have some creative say, which is not Vince's style. But again, it's hard to imagine Cody leaving all of that situation, coming back into something without a guarantee that he's not going to be 24/7 title material in 6 months, which I don't think he would be anyways. I'm being a little I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. And Brian, I do think if Cody Rhodes comes in, I do think he could challenge. I mean, not Brock. Brock's probably gonna go home, but I could see him challenging a Roman Reigns. I don't think anything is out of.
And he's not going to beat Roman Reigns, because if Brock isn't winning and Randy Orton's not winning and AJ Styles not winning, they're not bringing in Cody Rhodes to beat Roman Reigns. Sorry, ain't happening. Last word on me on this topic. Would we ever see, and we don't know what Triple H's current health situation is, could you see the feud? You mentioned it earlier about the sledgehammer and the throne and all that. Could you see Triple H, Cody, and to a further extent, bringing Stephanie, bringing Brandy, the chief brand officers, right? Could there be some battle between those two couples? Because we've seen the couples battle recently, in AEW in particular, right? But
I mean, Josh, it writes itself, but I mean, there's just seems like there's legitimate concern about what. I mean, I've heard people talk about Triple H might never have a match again.
Yeah,
this is a guy who's a thoroughbred out there.
Yeah, a guy who's been through multiple knee surgeries. There's something and if you don't hear much about it, and it's kept extremely close to the cuff, which it should. It's his privacy, it's his personal health. We don't need to know about everything about everybody all the time. But yeah, it writes itself. The women involved, that's fine with me, but I do think that you're right, Brian. Like when you have how Cody left in his piss and vinegar that he had when he first started and really debuted with AEW, the digs, they were personally directed to Triple H and company. There's no denying that there was some angst. So I would love that. Again, all dependent on his health, but that'd be a WrestleMania match that I'd like to see next year in LA.
Okay, here's what I'll give you on this Rollins and Cody thing, right?
We still have Mania predictions. Don't worry.
I'm just saying, the authority, right? Rollins, Triple H. If you're bringing in Cody as a face a heel Rollins, let Triple H be the muscle behind Rollins. Let Triple H. He doesn't have to have the match. They can drag this out through SummerSlam if they need to. I don't think it needs to be WrestleMania. That's just me. Set up for next WrestleMania.
I think if anything's going to happen with Triple H, then I think you can hope for LA next year. I think we're a long ways away from that. So hopefully, but who knows? Maybe it's all a swerve, bro. Let's take our next trip down memory lane. We'll be back. Juice joins us for WrestleMania predictions.
Next one we have is Eric Bischoff.
Condescending.
Enough said right there. Next one, Kevin Nash, the wrestler. Kevin Nash, the creative control.
Well, let me put it to you this way, and this will cover everything.
Okay.
Kevin Nash is the greatest worker in the history of the wrestling business. You could take that any way you like.
High praise. Okay, we've had Kevin Nash before, so we're gonna keep it at the
and
greatest worker.
I am a Kevin Nash fan.
Okay.
But that's what comes to mind.
The greatest worker of all time.
Okay.
Take it as it is. Next name, Vince McMahon.
Vince is a genius, and there are different levels of genius, but at the end of the day, you do have to say the man's a genius.
Okay, would you use that term for somebody like Stephanie or Paul Levesque, who are now more in charge than he is?
I'm going to go a little bit more than a sentence here, but Vince's real genius is surrounding himself with geniuses in every area. That he has the best in every position, and I think that makes him in turn a genius. I don't look at a Paul or Stephanie that way. I think they're more focused on doing the job at hand, and obviously not looking at the overall picture like Vince does.
Okay, next one, TNA.
Disappointing.
Okay, I would agree with that. A lot of talent. Seems to be disappointing every week. But next one would be is the D-Generation X invasion.
Ballsy. I mean, we did a lot of that not knowing what the outcome was going to be. I mean, when those guys drove that rocket launcher up to the WCW arena, building, wherever they were playing that time, I mean, we had no idea what was going to happen, and we were prepared for anything. To me, that's television the way it should be.
D-Generation X or NWO?
I'd say D-Generation X.
Really?
I think, not a slight on the NWO, but they were younger, they were cooler, they were hipper. I think sometimes the NWO, and I love the NWO, and I was a huge fan of those, but I think sometimes, the age did come across. Whereas with DX, they were a lot younger, and I think the age made them a little bit more dangerous because you didn't know what they were capable of.
Okay, very well. One of my favorite characters in the Attitude Era, the Edgy, is what I always called him, Val Venus.
The thing I'll always remember about Val, that I've never seen anybody else do before, but, I was involved in and part of creating a lot of characters in my day. But there wasn't a character that was more over the night that he stepped out the curtain for the first time than Val Venus. And again, that was the WWE production team, Kevin Dunn, the producer, the people that put those vignettes together, were phenomenal.
He's peeking out of the woods and looking around.
Just
the nuances of it.
And playing those over a period of time. The first night he came out, I was there. I was the arena. It was like he was a main eventer the first night.
An immediate star as soon as he popped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Memories there from the vault. That from 2014. Very interesting names we got in studio there on Chair Shot Rally. Bringing him in now. He's the fourth man. 1, 2, 3, 4. The four. Juice Springsteen.
Last
Juice?
segment. What are you guys doing? I should have been in that last segment with this shirt, but it's okay. You guys handled it pretty well. Feels like it's 5-10 years has passed. What's going on?
5-10 minutes. 5-10 minutes.
That's how it's felt. Yeah.
A more proper.
Feels like only feel like an eternity.
Nice to see you got a new outfit.
Same jacket, same hat, same shades.
Gulish got 2 suits and 2 segments. Come on now.
Well, you're
I
keeping
didn't know we could do
keeping
costume
up with mine.
changes. Jeez, man.
I know Gulish is treating this like it's like the Oscars or something. He's like going.
Hey, I got a hell of a tailor by the name of David Allen. I got to show off his gear.
Mm-hmm. All right, Juice. Let's jump you in here. First off, we will get to it in terms of a hypothetical, but I know you've probably been biting at the bit to give me your Cody Rhodes, and you and I actually really haven't talked about it off screen. So I'm genuinely interested in what's your Cody Rhodes take right now.
I mean, we've discussed slightly that if Cody really doesn't go to WWE and it's a work, I mean, can the fans trust anything anymore? Like because my dad has been going back and forth, and Gulish, the same sentiment. You just don't know, like everything could be a work. Like the only people that know are the guys that are really there. And that's why we're here and they're there. They have the ideas. They know what's going on. They know in theory what's going to be, the next step. And I don't know what Cody's wanting to do. If the money is in WWE and they can give him some creative control. And I agree with you, LaBar. The fact that he did his own thing, just created a company. He didn't do it on his own, but he went out, I'm going to do this and this and this. And AEW's, a big competitor. It wasn't around when this show was around, and now it's bigger than all of us. And Cody now can go to WWE. Hey, look what I can do. Do not put me where I was before. Clearly, I can do this on my own. I don't know, though. I also feel like he could be hidden in the mid-card. I have my concerns. I think that he could get that one big pop at WrestleMania or the night after, although Veer might have that. But I don't know what they do going forward.
Both would be good. Both would be good because we haven't had a good Raw after Mania in a long time.
Well, and to some of what Brian said, I think it was Brian in the last segment about guys come. Cody could be the start of guys coming back from coming from AEW, the first of that wave, of that door swinging that way. I think Cody might realize that, and he might say, "Look," and maybe this is even I don't know. I don't know what his relationship is or what he's saying, but maybe he tries to say, "Look, if you treat me well, if you see some other talents, guys or girls that now you've seen on the big stage and you like, maybe you passed up on before at the training at the performance center, you treat me well. That's a lot more leverage for me to say, yeah, come on over and make some money over here. You bury me in 6 months,
And also, like, Juice,
he can go back if he wants to. You guys have said that. Like AEW just started. Like anybody that leaves that's already been there. I'm not saying MJF will do that, but you could leave and go back as long as you don't burn the bridge. And I think these guys are smart enough to realize that.
Well, and Juice, out of the four of us, you're the one who has and maybe still is tapped into other wrestling organizations, indie scene, right? I think LaBar also as well, but I think you were one of the first that really brought that kind of background to the show and to just what we've talked about. And something that I said last segment was I always felt that even though Cody was kind of the renegade or, the guy that really left WWE to stick it up their backsides, I always felt that he still wasn't fully like in. Like, he wasn't part of like the guys. That wasn't part of the EVPs. Like, yeah, he got booed, and everybody else, because they were indie guys, got cheered. So was it because he was from WWE, and now they're seeing Cody put himself into positions that they think, you know, guys like Triple H have in the past? Like, I guess I didn't know why there was such backlash, because again, he was one of the main people that created this company.
It's to that point, though, right? So first, credit to Josh for saying, treat me well and others will follow. That wasn't me. That was Josh. Two, Juice, what you said earlier is perfectly, that's what I want to see. I want there to be that disbelief, the suspension of belief. I want people to not trust anything anymore, because I want things to be a genuine surprise.
That's where wrestling's most exciting.
Exactly. And number three, to your last point there, Josh, is where does Chris Jericho stand on that scale then when you're talking about guys who came in from WWE? Does he ever go back? Does he get inducted into the Hall of Fame? How committed is he truly to AEW as one of those core guys like Jericho was, or Cody was?
That's a great question, Brian. I think Jericho and Vince have a different, again, me speculating, and from a lot of Talk is Jericho podcasts that I've listened to, I feel that he has a different relationship with Vince than Cody does, because in Vince's mind, again, me speculating, I think he views Jericho as a guy that's made him money in his main event at WrestleManias. So he might show more respect and more freedom, I guess, for Jericho. So Jericho might have, well, not anymore, but previously, but might have had a more wide open door than Cody did when Cody initially left WWE. So maybe Jericho, I mean, I think both of these guys will get their Hall of Fame induction. Does that matter to people? I don't know. Like, I mean, I think some people like it, some people don't. I mean, hell, Queen Sharmel's going in the Hall of Fame. So, like, anybody can get it at this point. LaBar can be a manager for a cup of coffee in WWE. They're going to induct his bald ass. So we don't even know. But I do think that both guys
I'll be managing Wardlow at house shows.
I don't know why you're not there, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I agree, Brian. I think both guys have different relationships, and I don't think Vince ever says no to somebody coming back that's betrayed him. I mean, look at all the guys that he's brought back. You know?
If you listen to the McAfee, sorry, go ahead, Juice.
No, sorry. You make a good point, though, Isenberg. That the fact that Jericho has been a guy that's gone not just to WWE or whatever, he's gone everywhere and just does whatever the hell he wants. Yeah. And I think that Cody, well, so Jericho really is a trailblazer. I mean, he says it in his character, but that's really who he is. He's been doing the newest thing, or setting it as the newest thing. Cody, though, is the first guy in theory. You know, he dipped out of a company that wasn't treating him right and said, I'm just going to make my own company. And it's not a TNA, you know, and they're, you know, whatever, but it's a competitor. They got a big deal on a big network, and they got 2 shows now, and they're traveling around the country. I think that's enough on his resume that Vince can see that and say, maybe you can help. And like LaBar's point, maybe he can do something in NXT. And I don't think that would be a demotion. I think down the line, I think he could help with NXT, especially because his father was so integral in that. And I think it's interesting, too, that Dusty went from WCW to WWF, and people had that weird sense of, what the hell is he doing here? And they gave him the polka dots, but Dusty embraced it. And Cody, I think, embraced the Stardust character, went back, did AEW, and now he's back. And I hope that they'll take him more seriously if that's what he's going to do. Go ahead, Gulish.
No, I was just going to say, when you look at Jericho, just listen to McMahon on Pat McAfee's show, and he talked about, like, that's the first time you got Vince to open up about, we'll never say no to anybody. There's always the door to be open. And you look at some of the guys, Vince has brought everyone back. Has there been one person who's really talked down about Vince? Not obviously not in the last 5 years, but throughout history, who hasn't made amends with Vince and come.
Macho Man passed before they could make amends.
Yeah, and even Punk was on backstage, so it was something. They allowed him into the fold. He would have done something had AEW not gave him what, you know, they gave him. I'm sure. So.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more AEW in the next segment. We know we've got some AEW fans, so we will get a little more into the weeds of the booking of what's going on there.
Some AEW fans, come on.
Some AEW fans. Let's go ahead and jump into WrestleMania. As of right now, as of we're talking, we're 9 days away from night 1 of WrestleMania, the most stupendous WrestleMania in history. So let's for old time's sake, go around the horn and talk about the card here. We look at night 1 first. We look at the champion, Becky Lynch, defending the title against Bianca Belair. Juice, you're the newest one here on the episode. I'll let you start it.
I think Bianca's going to win. Unfortunately, with all the big-time backs, and now Bianca's got an injury that we don't know if she's going to make these autograph appearances, and they're just trying to make Bianca seem more of the mega face that of the underdog than she really is, I think. And I think she's great. I think she's really good on the mic. She has a lot of charisma. She's great in the ring. I love the hair gimmick. I think she's, it's been really tough to elevate a woman that's not one of the 4 horsewomen to this main stage. And I think she's one of the first ones that's not one of those 4 that have elevated themselves into a big spot. And she killed it last year at WrestleMania. And I think she's going to end up winning the belt here again. And when SummerSlam happened and she lost so quick, people were very cautious about, well, what are they going to do? And here we are at WrestleMania. Might be paid off. I think we see Bianca taking the title.
Yeah, I'm all for Bianca. I'm a big fan of her, and I agree. I think they made some missteps for one reason or another, for shock and all, for returns, and I think Bianca just has something. She had we always talk about the has it, and she's young. She has a look. She has something that nobody. The hair, everything. I just the EST. I love all the gimmick. It's hard for me to go against her, and I'm a big fan of the challenger winning at manias like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bianca wins. And I would not think this if how SummerSlam happened, with how short it was, and then her really not getting her revenge on Becky Lynch. And I really just hope this is the end of them trying to make Becky Lynch a heel. Look, Becky Lynch is going to be cheered no matter what. She's not a Charlotte where she garners natural heat. She's not a Shayna Baszler or a Nia Jax who just people didn't really care to see, and that's a shame for some of them. But I think Becky Lynch needs to go back to what brought her to the dance, and that's her genuine interaction and connection with the WWE Universe. I view her rise similar to Daniel Bryan's. And then when they turned Daniel Bryan heel, people got behind that. People aren't getting behind this heel turn of Becky Lynch, even if they try to pair her with one of the most over faces in the women's division, which is Bianca Belair. So at the end of the day, they've misstepped on Becky Lynch's heel turn. Good for her for trying, but at the same time, it's just not working. She's not making a deal with the devil when there's no devil, and she's not doing anything heelish aside from attacking. There's just no substance of her heel turn. So Bianca Belair.
I agree. 4 for 4 here. And then when you look at, like you said, Josh, Becky is not a heel. Stone Cold Steve Austin was not a heel. I envisioned Becky when it was Raw, SmackDown, before Survivor Series, bloody nose from Nia Jax. She's up at the top of the rampway going like this. That's the Becky I want to see. I want to see that hard-nosed, knuckle-punching, in-your-face, rowdy Becky. I actually think she can play the Ronda Rousey part better than Ronda Rousey could play the Ronda Rousey part. That's what I want to see. And I want to see Becky start working with some new women, bring some of those young ladies up, and really start evolving that division to where it needs to be.
All right, so we're all on even footing for our Wrestle Rumble picks. Let's move it on here to Rey and Dominic Mysterio up against The Miz and Logan Paul. Josh, we always see the celebrity involvement to bring in that portion of the audience. Is Logan Paul going to walk out with a WrestleMania win?
There's 3 celebrity appearances in 2 nights of WrestleMania this year. If you want to count McAfee, who is a not a pseudo celebrity in terms of his overall
1-0. He's a wrestler.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I realistically think that the Miz and the Mysterios pick up the victory here. I said the Miz and the Mysterios. The Mysterios pick up the win over Miz and Logan Paul. I don't think that there's anything that Logan Paul and Miz need to accomplish. You're giving Logan Paul his one-off. Good for him. Maybe he does 50% of what Bad Bunny was able to do last year. I think people are still so impressed with how Bad Bunny came into WWE, how he adapted to it. When they brought Logan Paul in last year and they tried to make him a face, I laughed because I'm thinking to myself, this guy is one of the most disliked people at a general consensus, even though he has all of his YouTube followers and social media following. But the Mysterios should pick up the victory here, unless they really want to do something with Dominic and Rey. If they want to split them up, I don't think you have to, but that could be an avenue to go where Dominic could somewhat shy away from his dad or even potentially turn on him.
You read my mind. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You and me, host. No, you read my mind, Josh. I was just going to say, I think it's Miz and Paul here because I do think there's going to be continued dissension between father and son. I think a split does need to come. Yep. And I think really, if you want that mainstream attention the next day, whether, it's Sunday or Monday, whenever it is, Tuesday for that matter, you're going to get that if Logan Paul goes over and all the stations are going to say, oh, Logan Paul attended WrestleMania and won with The Miz. That's what WWE wants. That's what they need.
Did a brand new series on Peacock. I don't know if you guys have caught it yet, called WWE Evil, and it's about the biggest heels ever in WWE, or just in wrestling in general. I only watched the Hogan and the Flair episodes. There was 8, I believe, but one of them was The Miz. So the fact that The Miz is considered by WWE, not by us, and I would consider him one of the best heels that they have. He's a natural heel. Who is he paired with? A natural heel, like Isenberg said, Logan Paul. He doesn't need to do anything, and he's going to be booed out of the building, much like LaBar said that Austin is going to come out to such fanfare because people are going to be just losing it over KO. I think the viewers from Logan Paul are going to be so massive. I do agree. I think he should go over. I think it's a great little tool to have. Like, you're not going to think that they're going to win. In this spot, you would have, like the Bad Bunny spot, you think that the faces are going to win, the Mysterios are going to get the win. I'm not sure if Dominic is going to turn on Ray because they've been saying, well, we don't want to do it. But like I said earlier, everything could be a work, so maybe they do. And I think the biggest stage is the right spot for it. But I also have heard some inklings of maybe Dominic should do some NXT 2.0. I don't know where, you guys fall on that. I kind of agree. I think he should get it. I think he's fine, but I think he should, earn his stripes a little bit more and get some more reps in NXT 2.0 before going up. But if not, have him turn heel. It's WrestleMania. Why not?
I think Dominic doing NXT 2.0 would have been something, but now that they're back and traveling, he's doing house shows. I mean, he's getting to work dark matches, with John Cena. When John came back, John teamed up with them, and he's getting a lot of valuable experience. I don't know. I could see the Mysterios winning. Sure. I could see the Mysterios winning, and Dominic gets the pin. I could also see Miz and Paul getting the victory in some kind of cheap way. And I think no matter which way it goes, I could then see case for the next night on Raw. Dominic stabs his father in the back. They either win and he says, see, I got us to WrestleMania and I won. I don't need you anymore. Hold me down. Or he blames his father on them getting embarrassed by the Miz and Logan Paul. Either way, I think stab in the back now, build it for the summer for these two. All right, moving on. I don't give much care to this one, but we'll acknowledge it because it is what it is. Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. Brian Gulish, how happy? Are you happy, Gulish?
Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like a room with... Never mind. Yeah, I mean, McIntyre wins this. I could see Corbin winning this. I see them wanting to build him up and continue to build him up. But at some point, you got to make the guy serious if you want him to be a true contender. And I just see him being that gimmicky guy who's never going to be, in the upper echelon, the top tier of the company. I feel like he's going to play that hour 2 of Raw role for his entire life. And Drew McIntyre has a lot bigger things to come still with WWE. So I'm going with Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I'm going to go with McIntyre too. I think McIntyre is a guy that, unfortunately, he was not really appreciated as much as he should have been as champion during the worst of times in the world, let alone in sports entertainment. But I do think McIntyre picks up the victory here. I don't think this is going to be a long match. I could see it being 6 or 7 minutes, a forgettable match, somewhat like a Finn Balor versus Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 35, where it's just lost in the shuffle and you probably didn't even remember that when I said it. But yeah, I just think it's going to be something simple that you wanted to get McIntyre on the card and Happy Corbin. I mean, good for him trying to do things with gimmicks that are just ridiculous. But no, I have zero interest in this match. This is coming from a Drew McIntyre fan.
What a fall from grace. Drew McIntyre, as you said, Isenberg, like the pandemic, like the king, like the fact that he was going to have this big run. He won the Royal Rumble when things weren't crazy. And to be given the task of being the champion, the head of the company where no fans are in attendance, to give that to anybody, I mean, that would be a tough task to handle.
Him and Lashley both. Him and Bobby Lashley both.
Him and Lashley both. You're right. And they did so well, I think, for what they were given. And it's very unfortunate that, he's been relegated now to where you guys, we did a prediction for the first 2 matches and it took maybe 5 minutes. It's been 2 minutes and now we're on the third to last guy.
Next.
Although I think that there is a chance, Baron Corbin, Happy Corbin, Applebee's, Las Vegas guy, whatever you want to call him, they're good in the ring. I think there's an outside shot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but an outside shot. Remember last year, Sheamus and Riddle had a barn burner of a fight. Those guys are killer in the ring. Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin, tall dudes, good in the ring. maybe they'll steal the show with a 6 to 8 minute match. Maybe they'll have a hard hitting match and be better than what we think. The fact that we have no expectations, maybe they'll be a good match. So I'm going to go.
Point,
Drew McIntyre goes over, I think. So.
It's a match that's going to look good while I'm getting the refresh. And I like both these guys too, but it's just where we got 2 nights. Talk about the marathon. We have 2 nights. So it's just like, where it ends up falling in terms of
the pre-show.
I mean, Terry Allen Jr. earlier with the Super Chat, he said 1 night WrestleMania, effective 2 hours. I don't think you could boil it down quite to that, but I like where his head's at. All right, moving on. Up next here, we got
shorter than Raw.
The Usos versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Josh, you sound like you'd be a Rick Boogs fan.
I'm a huge Boogs fan, of course, but no, the Usos are going to win this match. There's no reason for Shinsuke and Boogs to really challenge them. Like, there's not a huge backstory. I think they just wanted to have Boogs play guitar and Shinsuke come out for that entrance that people still like. Yeah, I mean, the Usos are going to win this match. I don't put much stock into how good this match is going to be because there's not a lot of really good tag team championship matches that happen at WrestleMania unless there's a surprise attached to it, or you're going back 15 years to 20 years to WrestleMania 17. So I'm going to go with the Usos. Juice?
That the Usos should be facing RK Bro, and I think that it should be not a unification match, but I think it should be like a Survivor Series. Like, we got the best guys going at it. I don't like that they're just kind of slapping these matches together. Although when we get to that triple threat tag match for on the Raw side, I think it's gonna be a hell of a match, and we'll get there. But the Usos just getting this random match. I like Rick Boogs. I like Shinsuke. I like them as a combination unit. I like that. They're really over, I feel, on SmackDown. SmackDown being the better show. I say CSR over Raw, SmackDown over Raw, AEW over Raw. But I think the Usos retain. I think it's a decent match, but, I don't even think it's necessary.
How long until it's just Boogs? Right? Jericho's right, too. Rick Boogenhagen. That's such a good last name. But I like Boogs, too. Call him the Boogs, Boogs, Boogie, whatever you want to call him. That's it. I think there could be a title change here. Because what are you going to do? Keep the titles on the Usos just because Roman has the title? Roman can have the title for another 2 years. It doesn't mean that Usos, as part of the bloodline, need to have the tag titles. Now, that said, what do they do moving forward with both brands championships? Are they going to ever combine them? I don't know. But I'm going to go against you guys here and say Boogs and Nakamura get the upset. And, because the Usos don't need the titles to be relevant with Raw. They're already relevant. They're the top card. They could. Doesn't matter. They can be the top of the top without the titles. Boogs and Shinsuke.
I can't see the Usos losing. I just can't right now. Got to keep the bloodline strong going into.
Hey, we got to win $1,000 on Wrestle Rumble. We got to pick one odds against match.
I hear that Dana Gulish is always like in the top 10. By the way, I get the email the next morning. I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah, I don't even know. Bring her on the show.
She's asking what. She's asking what color tights is he? Well, I'm gonna go with that one. Or that's got a cool name. It's like picking horse.
That we were watching SmackDown. She likes the red shoes when the Usos and Roman are together. That red shoe on the black attire look is sharp.
Yeah, I get the same comments. It's not all about the shoes, but. Yeah.
All right, main event. We don't know. Charlotte Flair defending the title up against Ronda Rousey. I want to say maybe the plan when this started was Ronda Rousey, but I can't say that I've been sold on the build to this match. So I'm going to say Charlotte for the sake of my money.
There's a guy in New York who hates Charlotte Flair, the image, the gimmick, the 12 times champion. I'm starting to love it. And I think she is like Roman. Put the title on her. Let her just run and be the woman in WWE, just like her father was the man. Let her be the woman. I just don't feel like, and I know what they're thinking with the mainstream awe of Ronda Rousey, but I just do not think she carries herself in a demeanor that is. It's just there's something missing there with her, and
she's not a face.
She's exactly, and I just feel like let Charlotte do it. I'm Charlotte here.
I would have to agree. I like the surprise factor, really. I mean, it's Charlotte, who, again, 12-time champion, but it'd be a shock if she beat Ronda Rousey. Ronda coming in, winning the Rumble and all this. First of all, as long as this match starts before midnight, I'm cool with it. Last time they were, wrestling, it was well past midnight, and the match began with them and Becky. So if that happens, we're cool. But like Gulish said, Ronda is not a face. Like she's a natural heel, and just like Cody's a natural heel, and he tried to force like being a face, and it just doesn't work. Lean into what might be there. Same with Becky Lynch. She's trying to be this Conor McGregor when she should be just Steve Austin. And it's just like I like the direction of just having Charlotte win. I like the surprise factor of that. I think it's better. Yeah. And it's not like Ronda won't have another shot down the line. So have her lose. I'm sure she doesn't care.
Somehow
come back for a bit.
Get Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch together, face heel in that true way that they should be booked.
Yeah.
They got some payback from a couple WrestleManias ago.
There's plenty because we don't know how long she'll be in there. I think Ronda's around for a year or whatever. She's just now coming back, so I think she'll be in the fold. Maybe she'll get a shot with Becky. Go ahead, Isenberg.
Yeah, no, I as much as I want Charlotte Flair to win this match for all of the reasons that all three of you have said, I just can't wrap my mind around them having Ronda lose again at WrestleMania and having her only WrestleMania victory being in a tag team match teaming with Angle against Triple H and Stephanie. Because when I think of it like this, if Ronda loses, I don't know what's next for Ronda, especially since they're having her as a face right now. But I know what's next for Charlotte because Charlotte's a heel, and it's easier for heels to be built up back to the main event, even though, again, Charlotte does not need to be built up. She is Teflon. Like Gulish said, she is like Roman. She is at the top of the mountain. She should be booked like that. But I have a hard time thinking that when they script this match, they asked Ronda to come back at the Royal Rumble, and I just don't see them not paying that off completely with her championship victory at WrestleMania. And hell, you can do whatever you want, but have Ronda potentially hold that title into the summer. What better way of her losing the championship than in Vegas, where a lot of the UFC background, a lot of the people know of her. She's going to draw big money at SummerSlam in Vegas. Or no, I'm sorry, Money in the Bank this year. Money in the Bank in Vegas in July. That's a pay-per-view that you can set up either her potential championship loss heading into SummerSlam, and obviously Money in the Bank is just as big, if not bigger, than the other three shows. At this point, as LaBar said before, it's the fourth big show.
Yeah.
I could throw a wrench into it too.
Let's say that again.
Whoever wins Money in the Bank outside of that title shot could also throw a wrench into that. You don't know what's going on.
Sure.
So.
And SummerSlam is much earlier this year. I think it's July 30th. It's
at the end of July, and isn't it at the Tennessee Titans Stadium?
I believe so.
And Money in the Bank's July 3rd.
Yeah, so it's going to be
at Legion Stadium.
So it could be a quick turnaround.
Wow.
Shout out to the comment here, the Gavner, here from the UK, first wrestling YouTube show ever watched. This takes me back. So thanks for staying up with us. Much appreciated. We love all of the comments.
What's it? 2:00 over there.
I believe it is 1:15. I think.
Jeez.
All right, final one. We think of night one as of the moment. I'll let Juice. I'll let you go. You and Gulish go first, since Josh and I already kind of opined in the backstory of this, and then we'll cap it off here as our last one here of night one. Stone Cold on the KO show. Juice, what's gonna happen?
I was fascinated by your guys' discussion because I honestly was concerned with the last portion. If he doesn't wear a shirt, this is more than he's done in 19 years. And I think the fact that they keep referencing 19 years. I hate when WWE puts themselves into a corner. They have to, present something that people aren't going to be disappointed with. And I think that's a tall task when it's literally one of the greatest wrestlers that have come through the company. There's so much pressure. It's in his home state. If you make it a match, it's like nothing else matters on WrestleMania, but they're not. It's like a weird middle ground. So I don't know what they're going to do. I think it's going to be that, well, you said 5 to 7, then you said 6 to 8 minute match for this whole thing.
All right.
I don't.
Semantics. Juice.
Juice is going to have the stopwatch out.
click. Okay.
Get your Russell Rumble over-unders in.
There you go.
Hey, yeah, that counts. I don't know if the bell rings, because to both your points, if the bell rings and for some reason Austin loses, there's no way in hell that happens.
Well,
I don't
Juice,
think.
Because to the bell thing, I didn't say this to Josh earlier, but I want you and Gulish to react to this. I think the thing that kind of scares Stone Cold Steve Austin, yes, I'm saying scares, is I think we all kind of give it a pass because he's kind of a fan favorite in history. But Shawn Michaels, who had a tremendous riding off of the sunset, losing to The Undertaker. and he came back and did the Saudi show for God knows what payday, and then it turned into a disaster of injuries and masks falling off, and Sean had to carry. Sean had to carry this, like a handicap. I wonder if
don't blame Shawn Michaels on Kane's mask falling off.
No, I'm not blaming Sean. No, I'm saying Sean was the hero, but it was a terrible match. But Sean did the best he could in what turned into a handicap match because H got hurt. I just wonder, I don't think Austin wants to have an official match ever again on there. I think that's why I go that the bell. It is a semantic of a Isabella ring.
Before Gulish, but he doesn't want what happened with Goldberg and Taker to happen either. He's seen all of his peers go through the same type of thing of, well, they're going to do a match, they're not going to do a match, or we're retiring, we're not retiring. And there have been some good, there have been some bad. And Taker had to do a pre-tape to finish his career. So Austin's got a lot of things going on, and I feel like he doesn't want to let everybody down. But the fact that he brings up the 19 years, which I'm sure they were like, hey, put that in there, take your shirt off, have a fight for 5 minutes, it'll be fine. I think that will be fine. And like you said, the crowd will be at a fever pitch. I think Austin's going to do a couple stunners. It'll be all good.
When's the last time you saw Stone Cold try a jackhammer? When's the last time you saw Stone Cold try any technical maneuvers? He wouldn't have to do that. We're talking boots and punches and a Luthez Prez and an elbow off the middle turnbuckle and a stunner
and they brawl outside the ring.
Turnbuckle. You think it'll go up to the second turnbuckle?
No, it's going to go, and then it goes to the outside. It's ram your head into the guardrail, take a chair to the back, into the announce table, bell shot.
It's like Vincent Hogan in their street fight.
Yeah, street fight can buy you so much time. Street fight can buy you so much time.
Or Brett too, yes. And Austin keeps the 316 shirt on, black belt, the jorts, whatever you want to call them. And I've been saying this for a couple weeks now in our little dress rehearsal. You guys laughed at me, but I think, right, if you need to sell extra tickets tonight too, right? I don't know how the 100,000 seat situation is playing out both nights, but if they need to sell tickets, you let this be the end of night one. Sorry, Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte and Ronda. Let this be the end of night one, or it doesn't have to be, but it sets up a match in night two. You have them on the KO show. They talk some shit to each other, and all of a sudden, well, you want to be in Stone Cold, blah, blah, blah. And I can't do this. I'm not Adam Cole when it comes to, or that was you, LaBar.
I was going to say, you don't sound like Adam Cole.
I can't do Stone Cold Steve Austin. But you use night one to set up a match night two. That means people who didn't buy tickets to night two can buy tickets to night two to see that final 8-minute match. That's where I'm at.
I think to close out night one here, I think the only carryover of part one to part two, night one to night two, I could see is if they again going back to Seth Rollins, they tell Seth Rollins, you're going to find out who we got to, or Seth goes and throws a tantrum night one, it's revealed as Cody, and then we have a match the next night at Mania. I don't see them toying with, we've advertised Austin for this thing on night one, and then we're going to extend it night two. That I think would just be a PR nightmare.
And I think, let's say they don't do the tease for the next night. I do think that it's an easy way. They do this 2-night WrestleMania, and again, everybody's like, how are you going to close it out? Oh my God. I think it's not a bad idea to put Austin in this spot at the last spot. You can guarantee that those fans will go home happy no matter what you want to plan for night two, which arguably has a lot more going for it and a lot more on the line. I think you want to don't risk night one. Boom. It's just so safe. In AEW, this has been my favorite thing to talk about with AEW because we haven't been able to talk about AEW. If there's a smart idea, they do it. Like if it's an obvious idea, like, oh, Sting's going to come in, let's do it with Darby Allin. And they do it, right? So an easy option, they do it. Steve Austin closing this night of WrestleMania in Texas, best way to do it. So I think that's the way
it's logical. It's logical.
Sorry, Charlotte. You had your WrestleMania moment the last 5 years.
Yeah, you look at night one. The only things I think could even have a chance to follow night one is a Cody versus Seth, which isn't even an official match, or Edge versus AJ Styles, which we don't know which night it's even on yet. So because they're jockeying with that. So I think, you end with Stone Cold. We're going to move to night two. Just to let everybody know, still to come. We do have some AEW talk. We're going to talk about MJF and his booking. We're going to talk about the AEW roster. Josh has a Please Tony. Plus, we got a clip back in the archive with Dr. Britt Baker. So all that's still to come. Let's keep it going here with the Mania predictions. Let's jump into night two. And we got Queen Zelina and Carmella versus Sasha and Naomi versus Rhea and Liv Morgan versus Natalya and Shayna. This just feels like what they used to do when they would try to put them all in a battle royal or something else. It just framed a little bit different. I'm sorry, ladies, all working hard. This is going to get chopped for time, I feel.
I mean, it might get chopped for time, but it might be their entrances are longer than the actual match, or it can get chopped for time in terms of they cut their entrances when they're doing a video package. You have 2 of the 3 tag teams or 2 of the 4 tag teams in the ring. I have zero interest in this aside from what Liv Morgan's going to wear because she's my new Toni Storm. Since Toni Storm is future endeavored, I have not subscribed to her OnlyFans yet, but I plan to. All right, let's calm down.
Just to give her that plug.
Yeah, no. But I'm going to go with Rhea and Liv because I think there's more investment in both of those singularly than there is with the other 6. I don't think Sasha and Naomi are anything that's going to be outside of just a one-time. Zelina and Carmella, no thanks. And Natalya and Shayna, sorry, you're thrown in last minute just to make the 2 women that no. Anyway, Liv and Rhea are going to win this match in my mind.
Sasha and Naomi, final answer. Sasha's got to get back to prominence. They got to use. They're just not using her, and they need to use her. And I just feel like such a lost asset right now for them. And they don't. I don't know what her contract says, but she might be the first big woman, aside from Ruby, to head over to AEW if she's not treated well here soon.
Well, and Sasha was. Sasha was pegs above Ruby.
Yes, I know.
I think Sasha and Naomi, but I mean, I'd like to see Rhea and Liv. I like them as a tag team, even though all these tag teams seem like they just threw them together, which is that classic.
Out of nowhere.
Well, let's see if they can coexist WWE formula. But when all 4 teams have the same thing, why should we care? Why are we doing this? I'd rather have them do a battle royal and they get more people in there.
Well, who cares? John Albuquerque, she sends a comment. Real talk. I seriously credit CSR for being a major influencer and me pursuing covering wrestling for a living. Appreciate y'all and grateful to call you friends. Thank you, John. John's doing really well for himself. If you haven't checked it out, he's podcasting like a fool every single day with who knows who and who knows what's wife. So very entertaining stuff.
He's apparently a big fan of white wine now. I've known this guy for 7 years. First time I've seen him drink wine. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
All right, Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn. Anything goes. Juice, you want it.
I'm a huge Jackass fan. I saw Jackass forever in the theaters. I grew up on the show. I think the fact that they are leaning so hard into Johnny Knoxville being a thing, like he came in, he's pissing off Sami Zayn. They keep going back and forth on social media. I like what's going on, and yet I don't know what to expect. Johnny Knoxville, this is the perfect scenario for him. Hey, I do crazy stunts all the time. What is wrestling? Crazy stunts. So and he's got a safe guy in there. I don't know what's going to happen. I think Johnny Knoxville might pick up the win to get that little publicity kick. I love that they've leaned into it because Jackass has now been relevant for over 20 years. And for the fact that they keep going so far, I think kudos to them. And I think Johnny Knoxville gets the win here. I don't know why, but I think he does.
I could see Johnny Knoxville winning because I could see all his Jackass buddies coming out and help him get the win here with a bunch of goofy stunts throughout the arena. But I got to think it's got to be Sami. I mean, it's nice. You build up with Johnny. You're getting the notoriety out there mainstream with Johnny, but Sami Zayn.
There's not a better loser than Sami Zayn in WWE. Anytime he loses, his character to me becomes more interesting. I never root for him to win. And it's nothing against him because I think he's one of the best professional wrestlers that WWE has from top to bottom when he steps into the squared circle. So I'm going to say Knoxville, even though I want Sami Zayn to win, but I do think you're right. I think you do a couple of random stunts, a couple of big splash moves and things like that. Maybe the only thing I can think of is Knoxville becomes too Jackass or extreme and misses a big spot, and Sami kind of crawls his way like the loser he is and barely drapes his arm over Knoxville to pick up the win. But I do think there's more publicity if Knoxville wins, but I don't know. I'm not incredibly interested in this, but I do love to see Sami Zayn lose.
I think you said it there, Josh. I think Sami Zayn has a certain art to losing, and he doesn't lose anything in terms of his credibility. Everybody knows he can wrestle. This is just him finally stepping out and having, I think, more character work. So, yeah, I'm going to go Johnny Knoxville. All right, we got Austin Theory, the new chosen one, versus the pride of Plum, Pat McAfee. Boys, Pat McAfee, we saw him against Adam Cole. We know he can go. I am actually low-key really looking forward to this because I think some people who may have not seen Pat McAfee in NXT or may just say, what's this commentator, what's this football player doing? I think they are going to be surprised in a good way. Gulish, are you Pat McAfee?
No, I'm not. I'm Austin Theory. I see John Cena in Austin Theory every single day, the prototype. I see him being the guy 5 years from now. Not this year, not next year, 3 to 5 years from now. But I also see somehow, some way, Vince McMahon getting involved in this. I think the storyline with McAfee and McMahon is just getting started, and it's going to cost Pat McAfee this match for a bigger payoff down the road somewhere. So I'm going to go with Austin Theory.
Juice?
Like I said earlier, Pat McAfee is 1-0 as a wrestler. I thought his match with Adam Cole, again, give credit to Adam Cole, but Pat McAfee's an athlete. People don't give punters any credit, but I mean, you gotta be an athlete. And I thought he did very well.
Credit, shit.
But I thought he did very well, and like LaBar said, I don't know how many people, casual fans would have seen that match. So if someone's randomly turning on WrestleMania because they love WrestleMania and that's what it is, you see this guy that you probably know from social media or just watching on TV all the time or what have you, podcast, you see what he can do in the ring. I think it's going to be kind of exciting. I think it's going to be a great match, and I think Theory needs the win for the character to go forward. And the caveat being, Pat McAfee loses. Who is the guy he talks to every week? Michael Cole. Is Michael Cole 0-1 at WrestleMania? No, he's 1-0 at WrestleMania. What great fodder it would be for Michael Cole every single week to shut down his overexcited, very enthusiastic commentator friend Pat McAfee by saying, "Hey, Pat, did you win at WrestleMania? Oh, you're 0-1. Well, I'm 1-0." And I think it's just great stuff. So I think Theory should win.
Isenberg, do we see Vince? Do we see Vince in this?
I thought 2 weeks ago we would have seen Vince, whether he's in the corner, he comes out to his music and the crowd sings his song "No Chance in Hell." But I think McAfee has done enough to make this feud not as much about Vince as it I think initially was going to be. And I give credit to that because it's very difficult to not forget about Vince McMahon's interaction or his involvement in this storyline, but McAfee in Theory, it's been a very simple storyline and a very simple feud, but they've both just hit it out of the park for me. I'm very excited about this match. I tend to agree with Theory should win because I do think Theory in maybe 3 to 5 years is the next face of WWE, whether it be, a world champion or, kind of the guy that's next in line, in 3 years or so. For some reason, I love the idea of Michael Cole and Pat McAfee just doing that little banter each week. But, man, I'm like a 51-49 on this, and it's going to change in the next 9 days. I think, though, somehow McAfee picks up the victory. And it still doesn't hurt Austin Theory because I think Theory loses and he picks up a random win. And somebody in the chat said something about winning the U.S. title the next night on Raw. That could be something. Or Bernie in D.C. said that. I'm sorry for your loyalty to the Washington Commanders, but I think McAfee picks up the victory here. Again, 51-49 in my mind right now. It could change tomorrow morning when I wake up.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I'm going to pull for Pat though, because like I said, I think Austin Theory is not going to be harmed, and Pat can go on to his incredibly popular show and tout a WrestleMania victory, which I think Vince could see a lot of attraction in that. All right, 3-way. Here we go for tag team titles. The champions RK Bro up against Street Profits and Alpha Academy. I'll just throw this out to the table here. I mean, RK Bro just reclaimed those titles. Certainly, they're not going to drop it right back again here at Mania, are they?
No. That's it. No, I don't go
bro.
I think that I mentioned earlier about the random cohesion. Will they be good together? They put these two guys together, and it has been a great surprise and a nice surprise that they have been able to not just coexist, but kind of formulate their own thing. Whether the writers have done that or they've kind of organically done that. You got a veteran in Randy Orton. Which, again, he's done great work. If you watch some of the stuff on WWE Evil, he shows there's a video of him that's been circulating earlier of him, how he is a great heel and how he can get into this zone. And I think him and Riddle are a great team together. Inevitably, it's going to come down to, well, I guess we're not going to be teammates anymore. Maybe this is that shock. They just won the titles. I think it would be right, and this is my prediction. I think Orton does turn on Riddle. I think the Alpha Academy, who are hilarious, they're good, Chad Gable is incredible. I think they did a great Snickers commercial, which I thought was just a backstage segment. Yeah, they're very good, and I think they can get they will have the Elias Fandango pop moment, I think, of WrestleMania, where people are just going to be going crazy for them, and I think that they'll end up winning. But maybe this is the end for RK Bro.
I don't know if it's going to be Street Profits or Alpha Academy, but I see this being the end for RK Bro. And I don't care if they just got the titles back. What does that ever mean in WWE booking that somebody just got the titles back? We've seen Vince change his mind, or Bruce Pritchard, or whoever's calling the shots in the booking change their mind. I want to see Orton and Riddle broken up. I want to see them have this big payoff, whether it's at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. And, you know, I think that right now, the team that everyone's behind, whether you love them or you hate them, is Alpha Academy. And that's who I'm going to go with here. I think that there's a lot of energy into that team right now. And I think that, you know, they get they're over. They are over. Both of them, for as yin and yang as they are over.
Well, and before Justin, you said, I could make a case for all three winning, right? Like Alpha Academy, as both of you said, they're an odd couple, but they've worked. Similar to RK Bro, they're an odd couple that's worked. The Street Profits, to me, they were so hot as Raw champions before the pandemic, and they kind of have fallen off. And I never really understood why they didn't have a place on the WrestleMania card last year. Because, you know, you had AJ and Omos in the New Day. So that was, you know, your tag team championship match on Raw. I guess I just didn't really understand where it fell off, because they're still getting that big reaction. So in the back of my mind, I kind of think that they could win, because they're really the only traditional tag team here. But I don't know if it's the time to pull the plug on RK Bro. You know, you had Randy being so, like, genuinely real whenever he said, "I'm having the most fun of my life." Like, I really think that's Juice, everything's a work to you. Your Twitter profile says so. But it's just, I want that to be something that carries them through the rest of the year, and then maybe it's SummerSlam, where they win the titles at SummerSlam for the first time?
I think it was there.
Yeah, so maybe you do that. They hold the titles for a bit. If they didn't win the titles a few weeks ago and were constantly coming up short-handed, I could see a reason for Orton switching the flip so quickly again at WrestleMania. I just don't know if that's going to happen here. So, you know, my gut says maybe Street Profits, but my head says probably RK Bro retaining.
Yeah, I think the Street Profits really got harmed by the pandemic. I think they really suffered having to do their act in front of a bunch of screens in an empty Thunderdome. Yeah, RK Bro, I wouldn't be surprised if they've come to, they being the creative or Vince, have come to Randy several times and said, "Okay, I think we're ready to do this," and him saying, "No, let's ride this out. Let's ride the merch. Let's ride the fun. I'm having fun. We can always have a match with
Riddle, because he needs more money. Let's ride the merch.
You always need more. You always need more. You got kids to put through college. You always need, because one day you're going to stop bumping. So I can see him saying, "Look, it doesn't matter if Riddle and I fight at SummerSlam or Mania next year. He's not going anywhere. Riddle, and Randy's timeless. So I'm going to stick with RK Bro here." All right, let's move into the match again. Don't know where it's going to be, but it doesn't matter which night it is of who wins. Edge versus AJ Styles. Josh, you're the resident Edge head. I know you're going to be watching for wardrobe. You're going to be watching for Alter Bridge entrance.
The new entrance of Alter Bridge.
Robert O'Reilly asks who gets the special entrances. So what do we got here? Edge versus AJ Styles.
If they really want to invest on Edge being this heel, which I'm okay with them doing, because I think some of my best moments before Edge came back was him being a heel. His match with The Undertaker, I think, thanks to Mick Foley, he tapped into a heel persona that he had it with Foley at 22, but I think getting it out of him and main eventing WrestleMania 24 with The Undertaker brought another layer to Edge, a more in-depth, more complex. And if anybody has benefited more than being on television and knowing how to talk and cutting promos, to me, it's been Edge for the past, almost 2.5 years he's been back in WWE. How this feud has been developing, I see AJ getting some revenge Monday night on Raw in Pittsburgh, and then setting up the match, obviously, at WrestleMania, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. I somehow think that Edge still somehow wins, because if you're really invested on Edge being a heel, you can't have him lose his first match in his new persona. And AJ Styles, again, is a guy that I think should win. But will anything really affect AJ Styles losing? He could easily win a couple of matches. I mean, heck, he lost his debut match against Jericho at WrestleMania 32. The next month, he was in the main event against Roman Reigns at Extreme Rules. So that shows you how tough and how much of a pit bull AJ Styles has been for WWE.
Pitbull. Raw.
Oh.
Just call him a Bulldog, Georgia Bulldog.
I know. Juice, take it, brother.
I gotta agree with Isenberg. The Edge flipping to this heel persona has been so great. But to me, I think the story of this match, for a guy that people wrote off, as, well, he was in TNA, he never came to WWE, they're gonna bury him. And we talk even now, will Cody be buried when he comes to WWE? Even though he's been there before, but anybody going to WWE, how are they gonna be treated? Oh my God, they'll be relegated to the mid-card. AJ Styles debuts in the Royal Rumble, bang, shot with Roman Reigns, and they had a great little spot there. And now every WrestleMania match, Jericho, Shane McMahon, Nakamura, Orton, Undertaker's final match in the New Day, he's had some of the best possible opponents and matches now coming in since being the guy from TNA. And I think that now he's getting a match against a legend who 5 or 10 years ago, this match wouldn't even have happened because Edge was on the show. So now you're getting this legendary match. I think that Edge is at a different point in his career. He is at such a weird level of now he's trying to elevate to a point where I don't think we've even seen him. He's gotten darker than Armageddon 07, where I'm sure all of us or most of us were even there and won the world title. He was a very dastardly ultimate opportunist heel there, big Edge head. And the fact that he's at this new level now, new music, I think it gives an opening for an AJ Styles to get that win. Or if Isenberg's point, if Edge is going to win this match, do you see him going for a title going forward, which we'll get to later with Roman and Brock, if they're actually going to be unified or if one will be dropped off. If Edge would win this match, it's a pretty high profile match. You would think he'd go for that world title next.
I don't know. I think Edge does the job. I think with AJ being, I love I love how Edge can reinvent himself, but I think Styles. I think it's more important when you leave Mania, and we all know that the after Mania season could be a funny one. I think you need some hot baby faces. I think you need AJ riding some momentum, coming back from the brutality that Edge gave him.
So before you interject, Gulish, Edge being that new heel now, he has no problem giving that rub to. I mean, AJ's not young, but he's younger than him, and AJ's got that future ahead of him. So if Edge can get into this new role, he won't be hurt as much if he loses to AJ, who will then be elevated. And maybe AJ will go for a title going forward. We don't know.
That's true.
So let's just get it out on the table. They did Sting no favors in his first match at WrestleMania, but that's a different story. For
he didn't deserve it.
It was a great
don't
match.
give me this. He was pale.
He didn't deserve it.
Yeah, LaBar didn't say he doesn't deserve it because he didn't have a tan, right? And I don't want to hear anything about The Rock.
He looked like Edward Scissorhands.
The guy dove off the top rope onto the floor. Let's go. So, anyways, that said, I keep looking back to who is going to be in the main event picture moving forward. For me, and to every reason you all said, right, Edge doesn't need the main event picture. We need some faces, particularly for we don't know what's going to happen with Roman and Brock, but if Roman reigns and if he wins and they unify the title and he goes back and forth between shows, or he wins and there's a new somebody else is going to win the title here on Raw, I feel they have to position AJ Styles as that guy for one last run in WWE to counter everything that AEW is, because I see Styles as the one wrestler on the WWE roster that represents an AEW style wrestler. And listen, there's no ratings war here. Let's not kid ourselves. I know you guys talked about it in the first segment, but if you want to pull some of those viewers over and start gaining a little edge, and you get Cody over, and if you get some of these other guys jumping, AJ Styles is the perfect example that this is who we can build our company, or not around, but in a main event role for the next year or so. So AJ Styles.
All right, Mr. Nostradamus, Shane McMahon, since you called it some years ago, does Shane show up at this Mania?
Maybe Shane sides with Pat McAfee. Ooh. Maybe we turn this whole Shane got fired thing into a work shoot.
Oh, we're not going to hear the end of it when this happens.
There's not enough vodka in the world to get us through with that if it happens. So.
All right, one more to go. Let's do it before we head down memory lane and then jump into the AEW universe. Title versus title. I don't even know what this means. Brock Lesnar's the champion versus Roman Reigns is the champion. Brian Gulish, since you're all fired up and you're standing up and you're doing the deal, go ahead.
Y'all seem, well, at least you, LaBar, right? Brock collects his payday.
I love Brock.
Listen, here's where I'm torn at, right? I feel like at some point Brock's going home. How many more millions upon millions can Vince give him? He's going to go home. But this new Brock, this face Brock, with his own microphone in hand, his own personality coming out. Why would you want that to fall flat now? At some point, he's on a Hulk Hogan roll right now. I'm talking about Roman Reigns. That reign has to come to an end eventually. Like, I really don't know. I want to see how Monday plays out, because I was going to ask you this about the, Styles and Edge. If you believe in the go-home show mentality of whoever gets over at the go-home show is going down at the pay-per-view, that's what I want to see. Who gets the upper hand Monday night in Pittsburgh? And whoever that is, unfortunately, I think is going to be the loser in this match. So I'm unprepared right now to make a pick, but if I'm going to make a pick off my gut, I'm going to say they're going to keep riding with Roman Reigns.
You had all this time to prepare for the CSR reunion you've been asking for, and you can't come prepared with the main event winner?
No, because we don't have all the variables in place, bro.
I mean, I can't see, and I love Brock. I've always said Brock is generational. He's one of those ones that if you hate on him now, when he's gone after 5 years of really being gone and never coming back, you're going to truly miss what he does. I love him, but I think that he could lose, not come back till the summer, and he can come back as Farmer Brock and no harm, no foul. I think you said Hulkamania type. Roman is on that run. When's the last time WWE's had lengthy storytelling to this degree? And I think we all might agree that in some form or fashion, this run has to go until LA next year, right, Josh?
So yes, I tend to agree, but in the back of my mind, there is a thought that I don't see. So everybody thinks the end game is Roman and Rock at WrestleMania next year in LA. And I understand championships need to be on the line for it, or people think that championships should be on the line for it. I guess my thought is, if not Brock, then who? Who is a guy that can actually take the title off of Roman Reigns? I don't think he's going to, but then I think about the next 364 days, and then I think about his match with The Rock when he's ultimately going to beat The Rock, because that's what happens. Rock passes, quote, the torch of the head of the table, because Rock's not winning the championship and going on a 4 or 5 month run. So what happens if he beats Lesnar? I love everything that Roman Reigns has done. He is legit on God mode. He is the Tom Brady of WWE. It's hard to stop a guy with so much going for him, especially losing Heyman, getting him back, and extending the storyline with Brock Lesnar for 3-4 months after we thought it was going to potentially be over after their day one match. And I don't know who beats Roman.
It's a great question.
Who beats Brock?
Well,
everybody's beaten Brock, though. But everybody's beaten Brock. Rollins has beaten Brock. Brock Lesnar loses, and he's still frickin' Brock Lesnar. So it's just, in my mind, I just don't know who is even close, aside from Brock Lesnar, to be a, quote, full-time guy to take the title off of him.
Josh, it's a great question, and quite honestly, the answer might be under the umbrella in the building right now, but I don't think they're even positioned. The answer for who beats Roman Reigns, which could be beyond a year from now, because you're right, it could be a passing of the torch if they were able to lock the Rock down. I think who could it be? There might be a list in some very light shaded pencil of let's see how this guy's developed. Let's see how Matt Riddle develops. Let's see how Braun Breaker develops. Let's see how Gable Steveson develops. There might be a list of up and comers, but I don't think right now the person that they would even think is going to beat Roman Reigns, barring injury or suspension, I don't think that person is in position yet in the company.
So Brock Lesnar, I mentioned how Drew McIntyre has been, was the pandemic guy. He came in when times were terrible. Brock Lesnar, for a guy that was quote unquote part-time, and we gave him a lot of crap for that over the years, he has shown up a lot in the last 2 years. And I think he's done a lot to further the storylines with Roman, with the titles. And I think that they've set up something very interesting with the unification, and Paul Heyman's involved with both. I agree with everybody. I don't think that there's a way around Roman going next year and facing The Rock. Like, everybody thinks that, and I don't see why it wouldn't be that. It's in Hollywood, and they're both Hollywood, and blah, blah, blah. They're passing the torch. So let's say you beat Brock, because I do think this would be the time where Brock can step away after being in for so long. You don't know if there's a guy in light pencil, not pen, to come up and beat Roman right off the bat. We don't know. I personally think that this is a great time to get that big, like the fact that they made it the biggest match in WrestleMania history and both titles are on the line. I think Roman's clearly going to win. The fact that we got him at WrestleMania 31, completely different match, from all of them, and Seth stole it. WrestleMania 34, they gave it all to Roman, but we all hated it, and they keep it with Brock. Yep. This is their third match in this trilogy, and it's going to be another stark difference from the first two matches. And I'm thrilled to see what happens. I think Roman's going to take both titles, and then whether it be that Money in the Bank, which, again, we mentioned earlier, very early in the year compared to SummerSlam, which is also in July. We don't know what's going to happen with that other title if they plan to have two. So let's say they plan to have two. Roman will win both, and then that other title will maybe be vacated or what have you. I think the goal for Roman I've had it for so long, we don't know what we're going to do. I think you're going to have him lose in maybe a triple threat where he doesn't get pinned. Because I think that's the only way where something can get taken away from him, where he doesn't lose that momentum if we all think, and they think, that The Rock is going ahead at next year's WrestleMania. You got to have him have something. Because Rock's not going to win the title, like you said. He's got to have, just The Rock is The Rock. He doesn't need a title to be, there.
Two questions. A, is it going to be a clean finish? Because I feel like to beat someone, I mean, again, to your points, yes, Brock has lost, so I can see if Roman wins, he wins clean.
No clean.
But exactly.
No.
And do we get now?
Clean?
It is a no contest on the table. Could this be some screwy finish?
Wow,
Could we?
no.
Why not?
This is the end.
You can't.
But
it's night two of WrestleMania. You've given people.
Because they've not done questionable things before.
They're not going to end Mania with a no. It's going to be dirty. I don't rule out The Rock helicoptering his way in. It's.
You think Rock shows up and costs him, or beats up? Does The Rock set up something?
Rock turning heel would be great.
Just showing up.
You can't turn the biggest movie star in the world heel, but
he doesn't give two shits.
Turn Roman heel. You think they're going to give Roman that?
Good luck with that. Good luck.
No,
with that.
I think Roman, like, the picture perfect memory for me would be Roman winning. Maybe Heyman does something to help, or the Usos, little tomfoolery, and then obviously Roman standing tall, similar to Money in the Bank whenever Cena came out, right? And then you do the same thing. And I know this is a very popular opinion. I'm not, bringing something up that, I'm not Einstein on this theory, but, have Rock come out face to face the following week. Yeah, it's your WrestleMania main event 1 year out, like he did with John Cena in Atlanta.
Before they didn't care about trying that before, and it kind of worked. People still got hyped for Cena Rock, even
the big question mark people always have is that was 10 years ago, and The Rock is that much bigger of a star. But my defense to that is they've known Mania is going to be in LA for how long now? They've had the date. Certainly he could make it happen. He's The Rock.
It's as if the fans don't know that too. We know that it's been in LA. We all kind of want it to happen. It's almost as if we're trying to manifest. Come on, guys, just put The Rock in Roman. It's the big match.
If you have WrestleMania in LA and a guy who you bred and The Rock is the biggest Hollywood star, if you don't have him in a match, it's kind of like what's going on here. So awesome WrestleMania prediction talk. Love all the comments. You guys can keep the comments rolling. We got one more segment. We're going to talk some AEW when we come back. First, let's take a little trip down memory lane with the doctor.
All right.
Okay.
How old were you when you started watching wrestling?
Okay, that's funny you said that, because one of my friends from first grade who was just at the show was telling everybody how when we were in first grade, I would get her in headlocks and she would be like, Britt, I don't want to play wrestling. And I'd be like, no, you're playing wrestling. We're playing. And I would like bully her. And I was like, I don't even remember that. But
well, you grew up a family of boys, right?
Well, so all my cousins are boys. The family that like babysat me, there was 4 boys in that family. So I've always been surrounded by boys. And apparently I bullied the only girlfriends that I did have.
All right, so now that you're the Britt Baker, the IWC Women's Champion, all those boys you grew up with, which boy do you know that you can kick their ass? Hopefully they're watching. Which one do you know that you would take them, or all of them?
I would say all of them. I could probably tie any of them in a knot.
Wow. All right, growing up, favorite match that you loved watching or that inspired you?
See, you say growing up, but I always.
Well, even now.
Anytime anyone asks this question, I always say like the big like, wow, this is like cool women's wrestling was the Natalya and Charlotte match at NXT Takeover.
Okay.
For me, that's where I was just like, okay. That's when I was training still, and it
Sure,
was.
that makes
it was
sense.
like that one really like hit close to home.
All right, when you're working out in the gym, favorite song on the playlist to work out to?
Oh man, see, I have an old heart, so I like the '80s rock stuff. I love Boston, Peace of Mind. I like
everything.
Just
listening to Peace of Mind as I go.
I like Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Iron Maiden. I'm like a big nerd, so.
Which that fits because your entrance song to IWC is a mix. It's
it's Iron Man and Taylor Swift, which like why not? Why not? Who doesn't mix Iron Man and Taylor Swift?
All right, favorite food.
Fit nachos.
The favorite food you shouldn't have?
Everything. No, ice cream. We can't keep ice cream in the house because I'll sit there and eat the whole thing until it's gone.
Britt Baker's pet peeve with society. Like, what's something somebody does? You just.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. No, I'm just kidding. So when I'm riding the bus to school in the morning, it's like my peace and quiet time. When there's a whole bus and then someone sits right next to you.
When they have more room.
Right, and it's like we both have our headphones
they're just
on.
creeping.
And no, but we both have our headphones on, so we're not going to have a conversation
they're
anyway.
Creeping. They want to sit next to the IWC World Champ.
We
have to actually time out on the questions. You said going to school. For those that don't know, you're getting your graduate degree.
I'm going to be a dentist. Like not a dental assistant, not a dental hygienist. That's like 6 years of school plus that. So we need to straighten that out because Joe Dombrowski just said that on commentary too.
Did he really?
He said she's in dental assistant school, and I was like, no, that would have been 6 years ago. So.
My response to her dental was when you got a nice super kick to the face at IWC Wrestling. I asked you if you could do your own dental work.
Yeah.
Because that was a hard one. All right. Let's see what your answer is. Worst or funniest pickup line ever given to you by a guy?
Is this how?
Whatever the worst or funniest pickup line.
Okay, so when my roommate on Zilla we were like on Tinder, and I was like, okay, so let's play with this Tinder gimmick. So one of the first matches I get, the guy is like, so are you familiar with Hogwarts? And I'm like, this is strange. And he's like, and I didn't answer. I didn't even answer, like Hogwarts, the witches and the wizards, and I didn't respond. And then he goes, so do you mind if I slither in?
Oh.
Deleted Tinder after that. No, we don't have Tinder anymore. Zilla's like dying.
Can you still watch Harry Potter without being rude?
I try to forget all of that. I don't have Tinder. I don't have Bumble. I don't have any of the dating apps anymore. I'm retired from the Tinder.
Retired from the Tinder, moved on to some many great things after Chair Shot Reality and her time at IWC Wrestling. Dr. Britt Baker, of course, big thanks to Dr. Britt, her along with everybody else that we've acknowledged, and some who we haven't. That's only so long. We've had 10 years of history, and we're trying to cram it all in here to like a 2-hour reunion. It's been fun, guys. All right, crowd's still with us. They're enjoying it. Love it. Let's talk some AEW. Let's talk more AEW. Haven't got to get into as much AEW as I know some want. But we're going to kick it off with an old-time favorite. Before we get into the booking of MJF, before we look at the roster, let's go in to an old favorite, Mr. Josh Isenberg, with a please, Tony.
Oh, that's right. Please, Tony. Do not sign more guys. The super genius had this on Twitter, sign more guys, and talking about how you've inflated your roster. Fun fact, the active roster for AEW on their website is over 110 male and female performers for 3 hours of television. WWE Raw and SmackDown with 5 hours of television, over 75. I love everything that AEW has done because they've done a really good job at putting together some really great WWE talent that were underutilized or felt mistreated. They brought them to AEW and they've been rejuvenated. Guys like a Jon Moxley, who I did not care at all when he was Dean Ambrose. Guys like Chris Jericho even, who I appreciated everything Jericho did, but became stale. They came to AEW and they've made a name for themselves outside of the umbrella. Can you say that's a fact for a lot of other guys? Is Andrade in a better spot right now than he was in WWE? Is Matt Hardy in a better spot than he was in WWE? How about a guy like Aleister Black, Malachi Black, who we really only see him on Rampage, which is really basically the AEW version of WCW Thunder. So in my eyes, 2 in a row. In my eyes, please, Tony, please make sure you don't sign more people, because with the talent that you have on that roster right now, in the 3 hours a week that you have of television, invest in the guys that are already in your company in homegrown talent. When WWE hit their peak, when they were battling and struggling with WCW, trying to find a way to beat the competition, they had their, quote, homegrown talent. The Shawn Michaels, the Stone Cold Steve Austins, The Rock, The Undertaker, Triple H, Kurt Angle, all of these wonderful people that were able to get them to ultimately beat WCW. Because what did WCW rely on when they were losing in the ratings? The older talent. But when WCW was beating WWE, what are the names that you remember? Yeah, you remember the Hogans and NWO. You don't really remember Macho Man that much in WCW. He didn't do much. Or when they tried to bring in Roddy Piper, or even to an extent Ric Flair. No, they relied on guys that were homegrown talent. Guys like Goldberg. Guys, again, not specifically WCW homegrown because he had years before that, but guys like Sting. All of these WCW originals, in my mind, were guys that made WCW unique. And when I think of uniqueness in AEW, I don't typically think of CM Punk or Jon Moxley or Bryan Danielson or Miro. I think of the Jungle Boys. I think of Sammy Guevara. I think of Scorpio Sky. I think of Adam Hangman Page, the Young Bucks, the guys that really embody what AEW is. Yes, there's a time and place for these former WWE people to come into AEW and fill out your roster. So please, Tony, make sure that you continue to do what you do with your champions right now, because if you look at your roster, you have Hangman as your world champion. Jungle Express as your tag team champions. Jade, Thunder Rosa, but previously Dr. Britt Baker as a women's champion. So you're doing a great job at building those people. I just fear that whenever egos get into the way and people want to become champion to stroke that ego, you could really tick off those AEW originals, and when their contracts are up, might try to go to another company, and that ultimately becomes your downfall. Please, Tony, stick to your homegrown talent and sprinkle in, not overflow, the previously mentioned WWE performers.
The man has spoken. The first please.
Strong words.
Strong through the eyes of Isenberg.
I did 2 for 1, yeah, because I heard that they wanted to see the eyes of Isenberg, but I tried to sprinkle that in somehow.
I picked up on that. Gulish, nice wardrobe change there. All right, let's talk.
3 in a row.
Let's talk some AEW as we wrap it up here in the final leg of this CSR reunion. Again, big thanks to everybody. And hey, by the way, if you have jumped in at any point or jumped in and out, whatever, if you missed any bit of it, the video will be archived here on any of the platforms you're watching. And also, if you don't want to see our faces and you want the audio-only version, that'll be across all audio platforms as well. So no excuse not to be able to indulge in it and share it and listen to it, enjoy it however you want. Let's talk about AEW. We can't talk AEW without talking about arguably one of the best heels right now in the business. That is MJF. Juice, you have MJF. He is simultaneously feuding with CM Punk, the babyface, the established babyface, who's a veteran, who's come back to enjoy the finest passion and love in wrestling. You have him feuding with CM Punk while simultaneously feuding with the heavy who we knew would eventually turn, the old Shawn Diesel routine. What do you make of this? And by the way, they've removed Wardlow from the roster page as MJF has sent Wardlow home while he continues to pay him so people can forget about him.
Well, first of all, I won't forget about him, because this first point about when we talk about AEW, I've been waiting so long to mention this. Britt Baker, former host of this show, AEW Women's Champion. Wardlow, managed by one Justin LaBar in IWC, now in one of the biggest programs in AEW. One Katie Arquette of the Arquette family, former host of this show. 2 matches on AEW television. So I, Juice Springsteen, must ask you, Justin LaBar, what the hell are you doing a chair shot reunion reality, like bringing this back? You should be on AEW. What are they doing?
That was supposed to be Josh's Please Tony. Hey, please Tony.
Sign
CSR
LaBar.
Weekly for an AEW or LaBar, but he's the host of the show. It's his show with Josh. So
I think they're doing just fine without me. I don't think Tony
would agree.
wants or needs me.
Then again, Josh did say don't sign anybody else, so you kind of put him into a corner there, Juice.
They hired everybody but LaBar, but we love him on this show. We hired him, but I digress. MJF 2024, and I'm not talking politics, will be one of the highest rated things going in that year. I think the fact that he has been stating openly on AEW television that, well, maybe I'll go to WWE. And that's notwithstanding what's happening with Cody. If he goes to WWE, has a better time, gets more money, gets better creative direction, maybe a guy like MJF, who I don't know how any of you three can argue is the best heel in professional wrestling at this time, at his very young age. Why wouldn't he want to take a flyer and maybe I'll go to WWE, knowing AEW would take him back if it didn't work? So the fact that MJF is kind of openly being, hey, MJF 2024, I think it helps his character going forward, and it can't hurt him going in the long run.
One of the most admirable things about MJF in this time, in the years that we now live in, is, of course, everybody can break character. Everybody can see, and in fact, he doesn't. Even to some people, they say maybe he goes too far, being too aggressive at signings or what have you. I don't know if you guys caught it. He just did an interview with Ariel Helwani, and clips of it were surfacing today, where he talks about how his contract is up January 1, 2024. Helwani poses, well, what if Tony Khan comes to you like June of 23 and has this truck of money he's ready to back up, and MJF says, I ain't signing shit. Whether or not he's actually pulled Tony Khan in the room aside, and maybe they already have a new deal that goes through way past that. Maybe this whole 2024 things will work. Whether it is, whether it's not, the fact that we legit don't know, because he has made his character that controversial and believable in 2022, when social media can easily pull back that layer and expose you for the softy and expose you for the hobbies that you do. No, he is well protected. And I can't say enough about how this guy is mesmerizing to watch and listen to, because you legit don't know what he's going to say. He's not going to give you a traditional company line.
Maybe he'll control his own narrative.
That's awful. I think really the thing with MJF, you know, if he does decide to pursue other things in the future outside of AEW, I think he's smart enough to know that he doesn't really have restrictions on what he says in AEW right now, because a lot of the things that he says there, he would never be able to pull off in WWE, because it's a completely different product. I think the best part about him is what you said, LaBar, is he crosses the line, but continues to be like, he's okay with it. And people are okay with it, because I think for the longest time, everybody broke kayfabe. Even now, like Becky Lynch is trying to be a heel, and you see a video of her surface, like, you know, saying hi to a child, or, you know, things like that. You're never going to see that with MJF. And it's a very old school mentality. And I believe it was the Undertaker's documentary, The Last Ride, when he mentioned something about like how he hates how kayfabe is like dead. Like he brought up an example about it, and it's not with MJF. Like MJF will continue to be this character for better or for worse. And I think that's the genius of him. He's been put into a position where he's been given 100% creative control on what he can say, how he can say it, and who he offends. I mean, he probably does talk, you know, obviously Brian Pillman Jr., the conversation that they talked about with his father. I'm sure backstage he went to Brian and said, is this okay? Right? But nobody's recording that. But you can go out and record anything, anywhere. So the privacy is just as important of him being his character 24/7 than him getting the freedom to do that.
When is Wardlow's contract up? Too bad this wouldn't be January 1, 2023, because could you see them Hall and Nash-esque jumping together? Yeah. I mean, those are the things I look for. When we talk about MJF being the biggest heel, is he a bigger heel than Roman right now? They're obviously the top two heels in their respective companies. That said, listen, I think he's great. Not going to discredit him at all. But he's also very young, and I don't want to see him peak too early.
Yeah.
And I feel like he won't peak early in AEW because he has so much flexibility and freedom. To your point, Josh, he goes to WWE. He's going to get the script every week. He's going to be contained in what he can say and can't say, and it's going to handcuff him. And again, I talk about, how much money's enough money. Does he need $5 million a year to go to WWE, or would he be happy with $3 million a year in AEW or whatever Tony Khan would give him? Again, homegrown talents, depending on where AEW even is in 2024. And like you said, it's not going anywhere, Juice. Maybe it's bigger then. Maybe it does overtake Raw in the ratings. Maybe they finally get a Monday night matchup or a Friday night matchup. But it's a year and a half away, more than a year and a half away. So let's not let the next 18 months, 19 months go by without seeing what happens first.
Well, yeah, let's get back to MJF now. I want to acknowledge this comment from Anthony Y. Says they save MJF versus Wardlow for Wardlow's freedom at Double or Nothing. I don't want it. I mean, Wardlow's freedom has to come about, but I like the thought of, and it goes back to my original premise of what we're talking about is MJF feuding simultaneously here with the established babyface within the rising babyface. I think, MJF said there's going to be another match with Punk sometime, someplace, doesn't know when. I think you get MJF versus Punk, and Punk, who clearly Wardlow earned some respect with Punk. Wardlow was dominating and looked like he was going to squash Punk, and obviously we saw how that ended. I think Punk says, if I beat you again, Max, you give Wardlow his freedom. I think that would be the ultimate final propeller of babyface establishment if CM Punk
you're probably right.
wins Wardlow's. And I thought they could have done that back in January as we saw how things were going. I still think it's applicable now.
They're good with long-term booking. What can we say?
We'll see where it goes. All right, well, MJF, obviously a homegrown, as we've all talked about AEW, but final point here with AEW. A lot of signings. Doesn't have to be just WWE signings. It can be, anybody from anywhere. What's the, best signings that have worked out, ones that have been a flop? I'll start with the flop. I think Andrade. Andrade is one to me where I look at it, I'm like, here's a guy who, we saw him have great success in NXT. Obviously, he had the main roster troubles of hot and cold booking and care. Probably not all of his fault. And then AEW signs him, and you're like, okay, here's a Latino star, good in the ring. It's not like, they don't have a bunch of him. They don't have a bunch of necessarily a representation like him. So I thought this would be money just waiting. I thought he'd be propelled, and it has been so hot or cold. Obviously, the Hardy family office stuff did not work out. Thank God Jeff got there and got Matt out of that nonsense. But Andrade, to me, is when I think of flops so far, is there of an AEW.
I think take away Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole. I think that no one has really been strongly positioned for a debut. I feel like they've been rushed at times. I feel like they've been overthought at times of how do we get this talent in the door. That said, I don't want to discount Andrade like you do right now because I still feel like they're building up to something bigger with him. Listen, at some point, Danielson, Punk, they're going to need to win a world title. Again, how many guys can you have in that top tier and build up that middle tier? But the overall debuts, I think there's a little bit at least to be desired on those debuts. But I think that Keith Lee still has potential. I think that Andrade has potential. Miro, I'd love to see him back. I'd love to see him back with Lana. Bring CJ Perry in with
Miro's been the greatest 180, and I think he's been. I think he was injured for a while, but he's been the greatest 180. When they signed him, I thought, what are they doing with this? I know it's true to I know he likes video games or whatever, but what is this best man nonsense? He has done a complete the Redeemer. The promos that they cut together with him doing the Redeemer, some of the best.
God's champion, God's favorite champion or whatever it was. Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be revealed that God was his wife. I thought they were going to bring her in that way. I thought that's what was going to be revealed as.
Not a bad idea. Juice?
Yeah, I don't know how they don't have you on the payroll, LaBar. You have all these great ideas. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Have you seen his bank account recently though? I haven't. So
no, I've seen his blue verified check mark still kicking after all these years, which is pretty impressive. He's had that longevity. But no, with AEW been it's around for 3 years, and now we're talking about guys leaving there now, and with MJF, and those are homegrown guys. But the Jungle Boys, those guys will stay. The guys that they've brought in, I would agree. I think Andrade has been relatively a disappointment. I think Malachi Black has been kind of in that middle realm. I think they've given him some good pieces. I think what they're going for in regards to Brody King and just having guys around him, the Buddy Matthews, I think that will help him going forward. I think Keith Lee's got a lot more in the tank, clearly. CM Punk, that's the biggest piece that they, was in the realm of, well, is he coming back? What's he going to do? They just had him come back in, and he's been doing some stuff. He's been doing this I'm happy to be here tour. I think his dog collar match with MJF kind of proved that, hey, give him some time. He's been out of wrestling for so long. It's not just going to click like that, but it was in him. And they gave him the Ring of Honor entrance. They gave him the music. They gave him the moveset. They gave him the tenacity that he's had before. And they gave him this open playing field, and they gave him the best heel in professional wrestling to work with. And I think Punk has now elevated that talent. Now you look, you got Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley, two guys that you guys have mentioned before. Maybe they weren't as big as maybe AEW would have wanted. But I think, honestly, Moxley has turned out to be one of the best pieces that they could have acquired from WWE. I think they've turned him into such a great fan favorite, and he's great reactions from the crowd. Interesting to see what he'll do if he ever turns heel. We'll get there. But I think him and Danielson going forward as a tag team with Regal, another guy that they brought in, is a step forward. And I think there have been more often than not better pieces added than have not been utilized. I think the guys that haven't been utilized, like you mentioned Joey Janela maybe earlier, those guys that they maybe gave more chips to kind of fall into the wayside. They're a new company. They're figuring out what is going to work for them. Cody didn't work for them. Maybe CM Punk does. So we'll see what they got going forward.
Well, and you mentioned Regal. He's a guy, obviously, he's not really going to be bumping, but he might be one of the greatest impacts of acquisitions they have for what he could do through the scouting, through the Raw. I mean, Regal might have one of the longest lasting impacts out of everybody that they've acquired from anywhere. In any form.
AEW has been, look, we did Chair Shot, and I was the indie guy. I was the Ring of Honor guy. I was the PWG guy. And then AEW was and is the WCW, PWG, ROH, ECW company. And they got Regal, who was peering through a little curtain at PWG, looking at talent. And all these guys are now either in WWE or they're in AEW. And to have that, it's not a guy that's in the ring, but it's so much more. And I think you're going to see some ripples from that. So I think you're right. I think him acquiring talent is good.
I look at some of these, because they have so much now, right? They have the guys that were names in WWE, right? Does Cesaro come in at some point now? But
he might get a Ring of Honor.
I think of, and that's what we haven't even talked about. That's next year's CSR. Ring of Honor. There's so many of these guys that Tony could send the Ring of Honor. But, I think of Rick Rude. I think of Kurt Hennig. I think of these guys they were never the top guy, but they were what filled out the middle of your card, that put on great matches that fans bought into. Their gimmicks were phenomenal. And I think that's what a lot of these guys are going to have to deal with. Like the House of Black without Malachi Black. Is he ever going to win the AEW World title? I don't think so. But he could be in the faction there to where they have some good stories they can tell, and that's what they're going to need. And I would be remiss to say, if I didn't say this, one thing they've gotten right is the man called Sting, baby. He came in, and they positioned him perfectly with Darby. And we haven't even talked about Darby. Think about that, how hot Darby Allin is in AEW. So
I'll give your boy this. Sting might have had the best debut, all things considered, because it came out of absolute left field and nowhere. There was no rumor or real buzz. Although that happened, it was a huge thing. And then Tony Khan even said, TNT at the time was like, hey, you could have gave us a heads up. We could have probably promoted and marketed that a little bit. And since then, everything's been kind of like the worst kept secret of when debuts are coming.
Well, and when I think about the worst, not the worst, but the most lackluster signing, I tend to go with Andrade as the first one, and a lot of similar points that what you said, LaBar, because I think Andrade was a guy that we thought was going to be like the next Rey Mysterio, right? They in LaBar, you and I have had this disagreement for many, many years, where you and I both are different sides of the fences in terms of, is that demographic really important for WWE? I remember us talking about, when Rey Mysterio came back to WWE, and then obviously he had this match at, All In, I think it was, with not AEW at that time, but there was a point where WWE lacked that demographic, and we thought Andrade would have filled that void because we saw his match.
They thought Del Rio might fill that void too.
Del Rio too, exactly, and just for whatever reason it didn't happen. But we both were in agreement, I think, that we saw all of them. Kalisto beating Ryback at WrestleMania, like it just the list goes on and on. But I think that you and I both understood that those masked characters were kind of 90s, 2000s, and Andrade was this like new version of that demographic. And everything that he did in NXT translated so well to WWE because he also had Zelina Vega as the manager. He had that mouthpiece that, his English is not the absolute best. So he was destined to succeed. So when he didn't, we said, oh, he's going to go to AEW and he'll probably be put into a primary position for a potential world championship run. The only other one that I would think, and this is definitely a left field shot, is Pac. Because I think Pac had such a crowd behind him in WWE that they're wondering, like, what in the hell are they doing with Neville? And he was a complete 180 when he first got to AEW. And then, injuries, I think, was it Moxley had a staph infection or something? Something happened with one of his first big feuds that kind of derailed him. And he's never been a prominent figure ever since that. Like, he's had his matches, but he's never been at the top.
He got stuck over UK for a long
stuck
time.
overseas, too.
It's an agree, disagree. I think you're right. At the start, didn't he pass out Kenny Omega at the first, like, Double or Nothing? Or, my God, it was like,
right? I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
He was like the guy.
And I think that I don't think it's all lost on him yet. Like, I don't think, he's going to WWE. Like, I don't think it's all lost on his character yet. I think he still has some stuff in him. I think he's been one of the guys that, even if it's kind of wavered a bit, it's kind of sustained as Pac's a AEW guy. Like, people pop for Pac, and which is crazy considering
they don't book him enough consistently for us to care about him. He's like a Lance Archer, where we'll have like one like memorable match, and then you see him on Dark for a month. It doesn't make sense to me.
You mentioned how Andrade might have been the Rey Mysterio. I feel like he's more of a Eddie Guerrero type. Which, although they do that with Sammy Guevara as well, they kind of pin him with that. But like you said, you don't know what they're trying to tap into, and I think that they've added so many guys that they can really tap into whatever audience they'd like to. It just we'll see as time goes on. As we said earlier with the contracts, it's so interesting. The company starts up, you got all these guys, they sign more guys, but at some point they can't just sign everybody. That money's going to go away. WWE's going to start going. And circling back to the Cody Rhodes thing, I think if he shows up at Mania or the night after Mania and he's really in WWE again, it is so important for AEW to go, hey, if it works out with Cody WWE, let's make sure we got our guys where we need them. Because if it does work out, these guys are going to start jumping back.
But that's the thing they need to figure out. How many guys do we need and gals to fill out a roster of 3 hours of television program? I'm not talking to YouTube. Television programming
15, that's for sure.
Right? Because you don't need that many. They're going to get disgruntled. You're going to let them go anyways. And again, Juice, you said the best thing all night, right? Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it's crazy. The fact I said this whenever they first announced that they purchased Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor kind of goes away, and they're like, oh, well, we don't know what we're doing. We're getting rid of everybody. It's nothing. But we'll come back in the spring of 2022. And then all of a sudden, they were like, hey, we're still doing Super Card of Honor, which is happening WrestleMania weekend. And since the onset of AEW, we're the competitor of WWE, blah, blah, blah. We have a TV show, blah, blah. We're not going to run a show against WrestleMania. All of us are going to watch WrestleMania. Everybody in the world that's a wrestling fan is going to watch WrestleMania. There's no need to go against them. They got 4 shows a year. They're all separate. They just did their big March show. What do? Ring of Honor is happening that weekend. Hey, we bought Ring of Honor. All these guys, maybe a Claudio Castagnoli comes in. You get a Cesaro. You get these guys that Samoa Joe. He got inducted in the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. CM Punk. All these guys that were in Ring of Honor previously, if they have nothing to do with AEW, currently or what have you, hey, have them do a big show at Super Card of Honor. They got FTR versus the Briscoes. That's going to take a little bit of away from the WWE stuff they got going on, and it's not directly under the AEW banner. It's a genius chess move that Tony Khan did because he can have these guys go to Ring of Honor, do stuff, promote AEW kind of on the side and still, have Ring of Honor as this other promotion. Kind of like an NXT, but they're not going to acknowledge it as a lesser brand. They're going to acknowledge it as just this alternative, which it's great that they can own their alternative. They can have whatever they go on, but still, he's going to book at the end of the day.
Chess match it is. See, Juice, you're a professional. We start with Cody Rhodes. We come around, we end with Cody Rhodes. It's how you do it. It's how you put a bow on 2 hours and 22 minutes worth. Huge thanks to everybody in the comments, to the audience that keeps watching. Again, we look forward to everybody who catches this in the after the fact and the archive. Gentlemen, around the table, anything you want to say? Last final words, Juice?
Man, what a trip down memory lane. I love watching all these clips beforehand. I love being able to just sit and talk with you guys. I feel like it's been 2018 was the last show, but it honestly feels like a damn lifetime since we've really gotten to process and talk about current wrestling. The fact that a whole nother company got introduced in the time that we were away, we finally get to talk about it. And it's been a great, as I look here, over 2 hours of us just BSing and having a great ass time. And it's clear that this has been the show that, needed to be on the air. We needed to be here to talk about this stuff. So
it's the longest CSR episode ever.
And
I'm
2
hours.
By 2 hours, of course. And I'm just grateful. Josh, Brian, Justin, of course, you guys been there for the whole time. I'm so glad that you guys introduced me into the fold so long ago when Isenberg, you moved and I kind of got thrown into the ring, and here we are now. And it's been great to celebrate this trip with you guys, and been a great time.
Brian,
let me find my bat. For all you fans out there that want to know what the future holds for Chair Shot Reality, well, the only thing for sure is nothing's for sure.
I feel like we should end it on that, but I guess I have to say something. But no, piggybacking off of what Juice said, it's funny because as everything changes in our personal lives, our wrestling fandom never changes, whether it's a Sting bat from the sky of Gulish's house or, my Edgehead love, or Juice is just absolute. His t-shirt game has always been fantastic. So he has about 3,000 of them. But no, it's funny, years and years go by and you always can connect with people that were important in your life at one point. And, it's been wonderful just to talk to everybody again. It's fun to see you, LaBar. I know you've been a hermit. You've been kind of stuck at home for many years. You're not the personality.
I don't leave my studio anymore.
You don't need your studio anymore, and that's a detriment because we love you in your studio with your big suit so you can strut away. And no, it's
my studio. I don't leave.
I know. No, but it's been great to kind of catch up and talk, and I think everybody really had a good time. So as long as the fans liked it, I think it's been a great 2.5 hours today.
Yeah, I do just want to jump in real quick and say happy 57th birthday to the Undertaker today.
There you go.
Well, he is watching, so thank you, Mark, for tuning in.
Mark,
you don't know who's watching, bro. You don't know who's watching,
bro.
Big thanks to everybody watching. And again, it started as something with Josh and I doing kind of for fun, not making $1, just being asked to do some video content. And it goes from some of the crazy pictures, if you were watching the very beginning of this episode, all the way to getting a studio. So I saw some comments earlier. I don't think I got to show them. But it was like, I didn't realize CSR got this big. I think it was when we were showing comments with like Britt or Adam Cole or something. And yeah, this thing grew bigger than I think any of us ever could have imagined. And the fact that we go away for, 3.5 years and people still ask, that's pretty cool. And so we thank all of you for asking us to do this. It felt like the right time. Like Drew said, a whole other company had spawned, and where WWE's at, we're 9 days in front of Mania. So why not? This felt like the right time. Don't know what's next, but just relishing this, 2.5 hours, been a lot of fun. So thank you. It's crazy. Josh and I have known each other since 2006, and here we are in 2022, still talking wrestling.
Friends with you 16 years later. My God, half of my life.
It's crazy. But again, big thank you. Big thanks to Raj and Wrestling Inc. for giving us the Thursday night spot to go and have as long as we want. There's,
must see Thursday.
That's awesome. So big thanks. Please like, share, comment, do the thing. Leave all the comments you want. Share it around. Tell your friends. If you know somebody who watched CSR and they didn't know this happened, share it with them. Follow at Brian Gulish, at Josh Isenberg 4, at Juicy Steen, at Justin LaBar. Friday morning, I'll be back on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM. Catch me there if you haven't done that before. And of course, WrestleMania next weekend, we'll all be live tweeting, so you can watch along with us next week, just as you did here tonight. Thank you. Be good. We're out.